Prayers.
Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society, the just government of humanity, we beseech you to look upon with your abundant favor these servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important tasks in this land. Let your blessing descend upon them here assembled, and grant that they may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under their deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed their charge.
Amen.
Amen.
Item 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, I welcome you to this sitting. Today is Wednesday, but you can notice from the order paper that we have dispensed with the Prime Minister's question time because we needed to deal with the rules and finish it today. And I'm calling upon you members that we conclude this business so that we are clear about our procedures. So that will be the main focus. Of course, there are other items on the agenda, but let's finish with the rules and then move on. So there'll be no Prime Minister's question time today. Let's go on with business now. Thank you. Nakaseke.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I stand here to raise a matter of national importance regarding land grabbings and evictions in Nakaseke South constituency in Nakaseke district. Right Honorable Speaker, the people of Nakaseke South constituency in Nakaseke district in the following villages of Mizimbo, Balatira, Manywa, Senda, Kabogwe, Nzingu, and many other surrounding villages in this morning of 19th July 2017, several policemen from Chuoko Police Station, Nakaseke District, raided their villages, and the residents were rounded up and taken for detention in the said police station over the matters of their land for resisting evictions. The minister had already stopped such kind of interferences on the said land and had ordered for the people to stay on that land without any more interferences and evictions. However, Right Honorable Speaker, after the letter which was written by the Minister of Lands, it seems there are some people who went behind and tried to work with the policemen in the said area of Nakaseke and came this morning and evicted the said people. Right Honorable Speaker, we, the people of Nakaseke South, have suffered enough with land evictions and grabbings. My prayer today is that the Minister of Lands and other authorities that are supposed to be in charge of lands do come out and rescue before the situation sours. I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
The evictions were this morning, you say?
This morning, Right Honorable Speaker. And yet the Minister of Lands had already presided over that matter long time ago. But because some of these people are near or connected to the power centers, they are using those authorities to undermine the authority of the minister. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and Honorable colleague. This matter has been raised here several times, and as the House directed, the Minister for Lands did some work. It's unfortunate that again it is recurring this morning, but we'll take it up with the Minister for Lands, and we'll get in touch with you tomorrow morning, and also we'll update the House on what action we shall have taken. but tomorrow morning, the Minister for Lands will be in touch with you.
Yes, Honorable?
I beg to inquire from my colleague. You said that the evictions were effected today. Was there a court order to that effect? Because if there was a court order, then it would be difficult for the minister to intervene.
Absolutely, there was no court order.
Okay, thank you. On the same matter? Procedure? Yes, is it yes procedure?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I am raising on a procedural issue. Last week I raised the matter of national importance regarding the regulation of public transport, specifically taxis and tax parks, following a circular issued by Minister of Local Government, and the presiding officer ordered that government must come here and explain, because she had also received a petition from people who are running taxis. I don't know, Speaker, the procedural issue I am asking is whether government has informed you as to why they are not bringing this statement.
No, I have not been informed. Honorable Minister, have you been informed of a statement?
Mr. Speaker, I beg that I cross-check with the responsible minister and then we come back to the House.
Okay. Thank you.
Item number 3, presentation of a petition by the Uganda Medical Association.
Honorable Member from Barara.
Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, under our Rural Procedure 29, I beg to present you a petition by your humble petitioners, the Uganda Medical Association. I'm Rosette Kajungu Mutambi, the woman MP from Mbarara District. Right Honorable Speaker, on behalf of Uganda Medical Association, which is the national medical association that provides platform for doctors to address issues related to medical practice and health service in this country. Right Honorable Speaker, the petitioner is aggrieved over the enumeration of medical practitioners which has not been revised to suit the current economic situation. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the petitioner is concerned that the failure by government to revise the salaries and allowances of medical practitioners has negatively affected health service delivery in this country, has encouraged brain drain, lack of commitment by doctors, and has caused rampant absenteeism and generally caused a human resource crisis in the health sector in this country. Right Honorable Speaker, the petitioner is further aggrieved by the fact that the public health sector is facing a human resource crisis because there are very few medical officers. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the petitioner is concerned that due to the failure of government to remunerate medical practitioners well, people of Uganda have resorted to self-medication and hence there are more deaths. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the petitioner is concerned that public health hospitals are practically run by intern students and senior house officers, and yet even these are not well remunerated. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members of this House, the petitioner contends that the medical personnel in Uganda are the poorest paid in the East African region. Right Honorable Speaker and members, the petitioner further contends that there is a need to increase the pay of all medical practitioners across the country so as to improve economic productivity of Ugandans by increasing the responsiveness to health workers so that patients receive speedy service so that they can return early to their work and to their homes. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, we need to care for people who care for us. Right Honorable Speaker, your humble petitioner therefore prays that Parliament urges government to pay duty facilitating allowance for all medical practitioners. Right Honorable Speaker, your humble petitioner also further urges this House that government establish duty facilitating allowances to all internship students and senior house officers. Right Honorable Speaker, your humble petitioners, as in duty bound, hereby pray, and they have appended their signatures to this petition, which I humbly present to you. Right Honorable Speaker, thank you so much. And honorable members, I pray that we take this as a serious issue that is affecting our country. And right Honorable Speaker, this petition is accompanied by a fact sheet that shows what the cost is to Uganda when our medical workers are not well remunerated. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to present.
Would you like to lay a document, a copy of the document?
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay.
Thank you. Let the records capture that petition. Honorable members, just a short statement before I refer this matter to the Committee on Health. I don't even know whether it should be a Committee of Health or a Committee on Finance, because I think we have had this discussion, honorable members. This House has had discussions about the pay to our health workers, not once, many times. And this House has taken a position on this subject matter. And I was hoping that the Minister of Public Service or Finance would say something, and then I refer this matter to, because this matter we have discussed. We are sending it to committee. The committee will come back and say exactly what we have been discussing. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the 9th Parliament, one of the workers' MPs, by the name of Honorable Kajara, who is a commissioner now, tabled in this House a minimum wage bill, which should sort out all these problems. And I don't know where this bill has really disappeared, Mr. Speaker. Would it be procedure okay to know what is happening with this minimum wage bill? Because it's the only one that will sort out all these problems. I have information that the big authority in this country was stating that the minimum wage bill will scare away investors. But it's indeed scaring away good workers in this country, like teachers and doctors. If we get the minimum wage bill passed here, we can determine what doctors should get, what teachers should get, and other civil servants. That's the issue, Mr. Speaker, I'm raising.
No, but honorable, please. Erosion procedure, but honorable members, would a minimum wage bill set wages for people? No. No, please. No. Let's contextualize this thing. Because even the prayer in the petition is not about minimum wage. Exactly, yeah. Procedure. Probably what they're receiving now could be above minimum wage, but the issue is more involving than minimum wage. Procedure, Mr. Speaker. Procedure?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wonder whether we'll be proceeding right. About October last year, in this House, I presented a statement on behalf of the medical workers. That time, the ministry was
had refused to allow the medical interns to do their internship and take care of their basics. Mr. Speaker, the minister was required to report back to this House and give us a statement on what the minister was doing about the recruitment of the interns. In fact, information was provided to the effect that many patients were losing their lives, especially statistics was given for the hospitals around Mulago. We thought it was going to be urgent and to be attended. Mr. Speaker, the minister only came back to the House bringing a motion for government, for government to recruit volunteers. She came back with a statement for government to recruit the intern students. Sorry, to recruit the intern students. But the confusion which actually was brought by the minister was whether to retain the senior health officers or to bring in new recruits from among the volunteers. Mr. Speaker, the minister was said to come back with a better statement, clear, because there was confusion between the senior and the junior minister. Today, we are receiving a petition from the same team of health workers about their welfare, about their pay is low, but in effect, the health workers we have are very few if you compare the ratio of patients to health workers. I'm wondering if we'll be proceeding right, Mr. Speaker, to continue to entertain these petitions, especially when the relevant ministry is not taking it serious, to give it a decisive response that the Parliament can take a position about. Thank you very much.
Procedure? Are we now going to debate by procedure?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, in the 9th Parliament, the Prime Minister then committed himself that government would consider the plight of health workers. And, Right Honourable Speaker, I recall very well, he was supposed to come back to Parliament and tell us how government was going to consider the plight of the health workers, especially with the low pay. And Right Honourable Speaker, as the petition was being presented here, I can see on the front bench, the Prime Minister is not here. The Prime Minister is not here, Right Honourable Speaker. And it implies, Right Honourable Speaker, that the matter had therefore almost gone above the level of the ministers to the level of the Prime Minister, the leader of government business. Right Honourable Speaker, wouldn't it be procedural right for the response to this petition, Right Honourable Speaker, to come from an authoritative office bearer, because the level at which you had reached was the one of the Prime Minister, who is the leader of government business. Because, Right Honourable Speaker, I am in doubt in this ping-pong thing that the thing will move from Minister of Public Service again to the Prime Minister, and yet this matter had reached that level. Wouldn't it be procedural right, Right Honourable Speaker, for that matter to be precisely and correctly responded to by the right office? Because even the President, Right Honourable Speaker, is aware about the plight of these health workers. All of us fall sick, Right Honourable Speaker. And the people who treat us, the people who make us, are these health workers. So, Right Honourable Speaker, this matter of the health workers is actually a matter of life and death. And we cannot postpone it, we cannot push it until many people die, until many people suffer. So, Right Honourable Speaker, that is the procedure I wanted you to guide us on and see whether these ministers here, these ones who are here, have the capacity to respond to that matter.
Procedure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we saw medical workers up in the gallery. And they appeared on the news at 9 o'clock in the evening. So the Minister of Health saw that the medical workers were coming on the floor of Parliament today. As you rightly put it, Mr. Speaker, we have debated the issue of medical workers in this country. And we have directed government to act on the plight of medical workers. Government have never taken it seriously. So, Mr. Speaker, wouldn't it be right that you direct that the Minister of Health comes and brings the issue of the medical workers on this floor, because we know what these people do. We know what they go through. We know how much they earn. And we know how many each of them is handling every day. We have over 6,000 medical officers trained. But there are only 1,000 that are on the wards of hospitals in the country.
Are you still on procedure?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Wouldn't it be procedurally right that you direct the Minister of Health to come and present a paper on the issue of medical workers on the floor of Parliament?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, if you recall very well...
On what matter do you raise?
Sorry?
On what matter do you raise?
Procedure matter. Right Honourable Speaker, this matter has been on the floor of this Parliament. Last year it was discussed. Right Honourable Speaker, we are very much aware that if you look at our neighbors, Kenya, Rwanda, there is no medical officer who earns less than $2,000. And Right Honourable Speaker, here a fresh doctor earns less than $500 per month. Right Honourable Speaker, this is a very serious issue that government must take on. Right Honourable Speaker, wouldn't it be procedurally right at this time for you to give a directive to Ministry of Finance, and this matter is acted on, and we see that our doctors' salaries are increased?
The Speaker weighs situation and takes decision appropriately and needs no direction from any member to do that. Yes, thorough.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise as somebody who is not happy.
On what issue?
On this subject matter, because I remember
No,
the last
we're not
Parliament,
debating. On what matter do you raise?
on a procedural matters,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker. I remember in the last Parliament, a similar issue on the enumeration of medical workers was raised here. And government took action, but in an unbalanced way. In the 9th Parliament, yes. Government decided to first boost their doctors in the health center force by increasing their salary, and this created a problem, Mr. Speaker. The doctors in the hospitals were left out. They were not enumerated well. And
procedure?
So the procedure matter I'm trying to raise, Mr. Speaker, is that I wish that petition had also captured that, and government should balance across. It should not just raise one side and leave the other. That is the procedure matter I'm trying to raise.
Honourable members, please. Can you cite for me the rules which say further procedure? Please. No, I think it is clear. No, really, this matter we have discussed. And referring this matter to the committee, we would be just postponing the same thing which we have already discussed. The minister responsible for this sector is there. And there's another minister responsible to these issues of salaries. It's called the Minister of Public Service. Government Chief Whip, want to say something on this?
Right Honourable Speaker, first of all, I want to thank the Honourable Member for Mbarara for having raised this important issue. And I want to thank members of Parliament who have contributed positively towards the plight of medical workers. Today in Cabinet, which has been chaired by the President, and I left it in progress, a similar matter has been discussed. The concern of different groups of people, the prosecutors, the medical workers, and other groups who come up to petition. And the President has directed the Minister of Public Service within 2 months to come up with a comprehensive package which will set the salary scale for all the civil servants in Uganda. Because today you are handling medical workers, tomorrow you are handling prosecutors, the other day you are handling other people, and teachers. So I want to promise this August House that after Cabinet has discussed that paper, by the way, a draft of which was showed to the leader of government business last week, the Minister of Public Service presented a draft. So after Cabinet has discussed that, sir, we will have to come to this August House and brief you. Because it is going to concern, we are talking about the wage bill of about 5 trillion shillings, where some people are getting, you know, high salary, others are getting peanut, the disparities you have brought out. We even reached a point of asking how much money do we have, how can we make sure that we have balanced remuneration. And the Minister of Public Service has been given 2 months by Cabinet, which sat today at State House under the chairmanship of the President of this country. Because if we handle one group today, tomorrow there is another group, and the other day there is another group. So we are bringing a comprehensive package, sir.
Clarification. Clarification. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, if I refer this to the committee, they will have a minimum of 45 days. I don't know whether it will be 45 days by the time we finish with the rules. It will be still 45 days. By the time we finish with the rules today, there might be some changes if I did that reference. Now, this being a matter that has been discussed by this House very many times, and the government chief whip is talking about process.
Procrastinating.
He's talking of a process that is ongoing. I will refer this petition because it's not really a health matter. It's a salary matter. It's not a health, it is not a health matter. No, it is not a health matter. It is a salary matter. Yes. So the person responsible for dealing with these salaries is the minister responsible for public service. Once the Minister of Public Service has taken a decision on what people should be paid, finance will find the money. But you cannot involve finance in negotiating downwards what should be paid to people. Because the person who should set the standard should be the Minister of Public Service, really. I'm going to ask the Minister of refer this petition to the Minister responsible for Public Service and ask that a preliminary update be given to Parliament next week on what is happening in this sector, while we complete the processes of harmonization of salaries and pay to all workers in Uganda. But on this specific petition, we need a brief by the responsible minister or next week on Thursday. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 4, motion for adoption of the proposed amendments, the rules of procedure of Parliament of Uganda.
Are we proceeding? Okay, Chair, can you bring us up to date on where we are on this matter?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. At the 12th sitting of our first meeting of the second session of the 10th Parliament, we considered the proposed amendments to the rules of procedure and had proposed a new part to our rules of procedure which would require treaties, protocols, and international agreements to be laid before this House. In considering the proposed amendment, sub-rule 2 of the proposal was defeated, and the committee was directed to come up with a new proposed amendment which would capture the spirit of subsection 2 without necessarily requiring that Cabinet lay before Parliament treaties to be ratified before they are ratified. So the committee has come up with proposed sub-rule 5 to the proposed new rule, which would read as follows. Where an international treaty, protocol, or international agreement imposes an obligation on Uganda to submit periodic reports, the minister responsible for the coordination and implementation of the treaty, protocol, or international agreement shall present to Parliament the draft periodic compliance report prior to them being submitted to the relevant treaty body. The justification: under the terms of the major global human rights instruments, Uganda is required to submit periodic reports every few years, assessing its performance and progress with respect to the rights set out in the conventions. These reports are currently prepared entirely by officials from the relevant government departments. These reports are not publicly reviewed or scrutinized prior to being sent to the international treaty body. There is need for Parliament to review and scrutinize Uganda's reports to treaty bodies before it is sent, and this would enhance Parliament's oversight role.
Thank you. Honorable members, that is the proposal which is meant to improve on the original sub-rule 2. Can I put the question or the modification? I put the question to the proposal. With those in favor, say aye. To the contrary, no. Aye. The ayes have it. Chair, what happened to 3 and 4? Were they already approved?
Right Honorable Speaker, yes, they were approved.
And in 3, you are approving that the Committee on Foreign Affairs should examine all treaties, protocols, and international agreements laid before Parliament and shall report to the House within 45 days.
Yes, it was agreed.
I thought treaties were sector-based. Would the Committee of Foreign Affairs have the competence to deal, for example, with defense pacts or international criminal court issues? I don't know, but it's passed, so let's move.
We do believe that once these reports are laid before Parliament and sent to the Committee of Foreign Affairs, they would competently scrutinize them and inform the House accordingly.
Okay, so can I put the question for the adoption of rule? Which rule is it? It's a new rule. Okay. Can I put the question for adoption of this rule, honorable members? I put the question that this new proposal, the new proposed rule, becomes part of the rules of procedure of this House. I put the question to that. Will those in favor say aye? To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Yes?
Right Honorable Speaker, I had an amendment to Rule 34, and I was advised that we will have to deal with the new insertions to Rule 33, which I want to assume that they are finished, and I wanted to seek for permission to move the amendment I wanted to move on 34.
Was the amendment examined by the committee?
Yes, I discussed with the committee, but it was not included.
Chair, because these are rules of procedure. We are not going to allow ad hoc proposals, and we may not be able to control what comes in the rules if it has not been examined by the Rules Committee. Chair, can you confirm this?
Right Honorable Speaker, the proposed amendment to Rules 34 was forwarded to the committee after we had already presented our report to this House, but the committee agreed that it was important enough to be allowed so that we could amend it on the floor.
Okay. Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, it's a small
procedure.
Right Honorable Speaker, I hope I got the chairperson well. He says they considered the rules, presented the report to Parliament, but there was a proposal that was forwarded to the committee. I don't know, because the process of forwarding work to the committee is the process of Parliament. Maybe the chairperson would want to tell us how was that particular proposal forwarded to him, right, Honorable Speaker? Because it appears he's introducing new procedures that some other people can forward even after he has presented to Parliament.
Honorable members, I think with respect to Rule 34, even from the presiding officer of this House, concerns have been raised in the way that we do Prime Minister's question time. As a presiding officer, I have also made this direction to the Rules Committee, that you may need to re-examine Rule 34 and see how we can make it more useful to deal with the issues that members keep raising at Prime Minister's question time. So this matter was actually substantially before the Committee on Rules. As to why they did not handle it, I'm not sure, but the chairman is here. But this matter was proposed for review so that we can improve based on what we have experienced so far and what other parliaments do to handle Prime Minister's question time. So it is very much alive to the House. Please, let's hear this proposal.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. My request is to amend Rule 34.1 to change the Prime Minister's question time from Wednesday to Thursday afternoon, same time, simply because the head of state chose Wednesday to be Cabinet Day. And when we sit in Entebbe, we find it very difficult to catch up with Parliament, yet we want the Prime Minister to be here on time to answer questions. So it's a humble request that we change from Wednesday to Thursday, same time, so that the Prime Minister can be here.
Yes.
Right Honorable Speaker, I had been persuaded when the government chief whip proposed that this is a cabinet day. But the justification, I find the justification too casual. This parliament appropriates money every year for the office of the president and for his residence. Suppose now the president chooses to take you to Rwachitura. Then you will say, maybe we should only once in a year have the prime minister's time. Why doesn't the president want to sit in the president's office to execute work of president's office, even as offices here? This is a casual way of handling state matters, that you take them to your residence all the time. We pass money here every single year for the office of the president and for his residence. Now, instead of going to his residence to rest, he's taking here cabinet meetings. I want to invite this parliament to reject the justification that they sit in Entebbe. When you go to Rwachfula, when you go to Chisos, I don't know where the president will go to buy another residence.
Order, Right Honourable Speaker.
Are you proposing that they reject the justification but
Order, Right
accept
Honourable
their...
Speaker.
Please. Are you proposing that they reject the justification but accept the amendment?
I was looking at the practical bit of it. If the chief whip said sometimes they delay there, sometimes meetings can take long hours, but to come here and tell Parliament to now institutionalize the residence of the president as a sitting for, even have a cabinet library here, where meetings have been historically taking place, cabinet meetings. So therefore, Right Honourable Speaker, the chief whip can withdraw that particular justification which is ridiculing this Parliament, and then we deal with the matter on its own merit.
It's a justification, it's not a proposal. Is the proposal okay? Honourable members, can I put the question, the proposal from the government chief whip of changing the amending rule 34(1) to Prime Minister's question time to commence at 3 p.m. every Thursday instead of Wednesday. Can I put the question to that?
No.
Buraya?
No. But they have already given the answer. No. They have already given the answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have noticed that the Prime Minister's question time is really sometimes inappropriate. He never answers these questions. I was suggesting that if we want to amend the
That
rule,
does not relate to this amendment.
let's say
Can
the
we deal with
members...
this? Can I deal with this
Mr.
amendment
Speaker.
first? Can I deal, Honourable, please, can I deal with this amendment first? No, not this amendment. You are saying it is the quality, not the time.
Yes, because it's done in other parliaments.
That's what
Mr.
I'm saying.
Speaker.
That is what I'm saying, Honourable Member. You are
That we write the questions,
that
give
one-
them to the Prime Minister, he comes to answer, than
That-
giving them here.
That one does not relate to the date and time of the Prime Minister's question
The
time.
date and time I'm not disputing.
That's
it,
what I'm
Mr.
saying.
Speaker.
Can I deal with that first?
Yes, the rule can
Can I
pass,
put the
but
question, Honourable Members, to this amendment as proposed by the government chief? Will those in favour say aye? To the contrary, no? The ayes have it. Any other amendment in on 34? Leader of the opposition?
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, Thursday has always been reserved for the members' issues. We are now bringing the Prime Minister's question time on Thursday. If this, as we have taken this rule, what happens to the private members' issues in this House? Do we still keep Thursday for the private members' issues? Because the Prime Minister's question time was given Wednesday and the members were given Thursday to handle their other issues. Do we still retain Thursday for the private members' issues?
Honourable Members.
Members' issues are private members' motions, possible member issues that affect individual members like personal statements. What time do we put for those issues?
Honourable Members, please. The Prime Minister's question time is 45 minutes only, and it starts at 3. Private members' time is from 2 o'clock, and it is for 1 hour. So is there a contradiction? Let's proceed.
So, Right Honourable Speaker, in that effect, I would propose that we capture that we are amending Rule 25, Sub-Rule 4, so that the Prime Minister...
As a consequential amendment.
In keeping with the Prime Minister's question time now coming on Thursday, I would want Rule 25, Sub-Rule 4, which says the first 2 hours of a sitting every Thursday.
It was 2 hours.
Yes, the first 2 hours, not the first hour. Thank you.
So then what do we do to bring that harmony?
Yes, please. The question now is which would come first, the Prime Minister's question time or the members' private business on Thursday?
It will be on the same order, except that now, in order that we do not interfere with the members' time, which is 2 hours, Prime Minister's question time now would have to start at 4.
Okay, thank you.
Because to bring that harmony.
Okay.
Would that be okay? Chair?
In view of the amendment to Rule 34, the committee is of the opinion that amendment to Rule 35 now becomes redundant, and I propose that we move to a new rule, which would be inserted immediately after Rule 44.
Which would be to what effect? Have we harmonized the issue of members' time and Prime Minister's question time? Have we harmonized it? 2 hours and 3 o'clock would not fit.
I thought you had properly directed that the Prime Minister's question time will start at 4.
We have not taken a decision on it.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking you to propose it formally and we deal with it.
Okay, Right Honourable Speaker, the committee proposes that the Prime Minister's question time be shifted from Wednesday to Thursday from 4 p.m.
Is that okay? So we took a decision on Thursday already, so now we are changing the time from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I put the contrary, that will those in favor say aye, to the contrary, no. The ayes have it, and that brings consistency with Rule 25, so there's no problem now. Yes, next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my concern is on 34(5), where the leader of opposition shall have a right to comment or reply. But, Mr. Speaker, you can see that in 34(4), we have allotted time, not exceeding 45 minutes. But if the leader of opposition gets time to comment or reply, supposing he or she spends 30 minutes commenting or replying, I was of the opinion, Right Honourable Speaker, that we probably also need to restrict the time for the leader of opposition the same way we are doing with 34(4). Because if for all members of Parliament we are giving 45 minutes, I think it would be prudent, Right Honourable Speaker, that we also put some time factor here.
The Prime Minister's question time includes the response of the opposition. That's what has been happening. Except that practically we have been able to adjust time to accommodate the Prime Minister, sometimes even up to 1 hour, depending on the members that would like to raise issues. So we don't have to assign time to it. But the leader of the opposition, normally we have been giving 3 minutes, 4 minutes to respond, which is fair. Instead of now saying make it 1 minute or 2 minutes or something like that. I think it's a practical thing to allow these latitudes to be accommodative. Yes, any other amendment proposed in 34? We now close any proposal in 34? Okay, close. Let's move. Chair?
Right Honourable Speaker, the committee proposes that we insert a new rule immediately after Rule 44 to read as follows. Statement by the Leader of Opposition. Sub-Rule 1. The Leader of Opposition may, with the permission of the Speaker, make a statement at an appropriate time in reference to the State of the Nation address, budget framework paper, economic, political, and current affairs, explaining the position of the opposition on the subject matter. Sub-Rule 2. The statement made by the Leader of Opposition may be debated by the House, provided that such a debate shall not exceed 1 hour. Justification is to provide for responses by the Leader of Opposition in accordance with Section 6E of the Administration of Parliament Act.
Honorable members, Igara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I observe that the chair has skipped Rule 35. I don't know whether that was intentional, but there is a serious amendment there saying that any question not answered by the minister shall be answered by the Prime Minister. I don't know whether Chair, you've
Chair.
skipped that we didn't handle that last time.
Right Honorable Speaker, the amendment we have just made to Rule 34, as I had said, the proposed amendment to Rule 35 really came about as a result of the complaint by members of this House that every time they raised their issues, the Prime Minister or the ministers were not in the House at all. Now, we notice that with the amendment to Rule 34, which now makes it possible for members to raise their issues on the same day that the Prime Minister is in the House with his cabinet. I don't see that. This rule was meant to make the Prime Minister whip the ministers to be in the House. The ministers will be in the House anyway on Thursdays when members raise their issues. So I don't see that amending this rule would change anything, and that's why I had said, in view of the amendment to Rule 34, it now appears that Rule 35 becomes superfluous.
The proposed amendment in Rule 35.
Becomes superfluous, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Amendment to the new rule. Mr. Speaker, I would like to propose that we add, after the words, the Leader of Opposition, the following words: the Leader of Opposition or his or her representative may, with the permission of the Speaker. The justification is that this is an official statement. It does not require in person the Leader of Opposition. He or she may delegate. So the Leader of Opposition or his or her representative.
When they're presenting the budget, it's a prerogative of the President to present the budget. And the Minister of Finance, when he or she is reading the budget, says, the President is mandated to do this under articles of the Constitution. I am doing this on his behalf. Do we need to go into all those details of representatives? And I think it's an administrative thing. We don't have to, because if the person coming who is going to present, say the Leader of the Opposition is mandated to present this statement, I am making this statement on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition. It covers that. Can we proceed? Are we okay with the amendment as proposed? Member for Bugweri? There's amendment proposed by the committee.
Yes, I'm seeking clarification from the chairperson.
Microphone.
Why do we need to condition this to the Speaker's permission? I thought it's a right created under the substantive law. Why do we have now to condition it to the discretion of the Speaker?
Right Honorable Speaker, the committee was simply aligning the rules to the Administration of Parliament Act, and that's what it says in the Administration of Parliament Act, that the Leader of Opposition with permission, may with permission from the Speaker. So we lifted it from the Administration of Parliament Act and put it here.
I think the permission from the Speaker is not to restrict, it's that it is scheduled. It's like notice, that it is scheduled properly. I don't think it is meant to say that the Speaker can say, no, don't make a statement.
It be interpreted that way, Right Honourable Speaker, and then it becomes grey. My problem now is that it is provided for under the Administration of Parliaments Act, but we would just create a right that the leader of opposition may, without necessarily saying with the permission of the Speaker.
So why don't we make it similar to 44.1? Because that statement now will have to be included in rule, is it 22? No, not rule 22. The rule that makes provision of the order of business, rule 24. Don't we have to include it in rule 24 now? So that it is ranked, because there you have all the kinds of things that can come on order of business. Now you have the statement by the leader of the opposition. So you might have also to improve on rule 24 to accommodate it there, in which case the drafting of permission from the Speaker now would not be necessary, in which case now you adopt the equivalent of 44.1.
Right Honourable Speaker, the committee has no problem with that.
Okay, so can somebody substantially, okay, let's first agree. If we create it, then we go back to rule 24 and make the inclusion there. Is that okay? Yes. Can I put the question to the proposed amendment by the committee then? I put the question to the introduction of the new rule to be part of the rules of procedure of this House. I put the question to that. Will those in favor say to the contrary? No. The ayes have it.
Right Honourable Speaker, the committee proposes that we insert a new rule immediately after Rule 86 as follows.
So that we tidy this up, I'm now proposing that you make a consequential amendment to Rule 24 to insert statement by leader of the opposition as an item on the order of business. The placing there, because you have statement by ministers, personal statement, presentation of petitions, laying of papers, all those. Now it should be one of those items there. I don't know where it will be, because there's address by the President, address by distinguished personalities, bills, first reading, then you come to statements. Where would it be? We can agree on the principle, and then it can be inserted properly. You can say to amend Rule 24.2 to include that.
Right Honourable Speaker, the committee proposes that we amend Rule 24.2 to include a statement by the leader of opposition to include the following. The leader of opposition may make a statement that...
No. Just the heading.
Okay.
Statement by leader of the opposition. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's sufficient. And then the proper housing will be arranged in the course of drafting, redrafting. Can I put the question to that amendment proposed in Rule 24, Sub-Rule 2? I put the question. Will those in favor say to the contrary? No. The ayes have it. So we have agreed on the text of this amendment to be similar to Clause 1 of Rule 44. Is that correct? Would you like to read now the new wording? Instead of minister, now you say the leader of opposition. So that, look at Rule 44.1. That now will be the drafting of the rule that we have just agreed upon. Is that correct? Yes.
Right Honorable Speaker, the committee proposes that we amend.
But even that one has permission of the Speaker. Yeah, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, even that one of the ministers has permission of the Speaker. With the prior permission of the Speaker, whether for the purpose of explaining government policy or action upon any matter. So they all have permission of the Speaker. Like I said, it was for purposes, because we have not had a situation where the Speaker said, no, the Minister wants to make a statement, no, you will not make that statement. I think this is the spirit, to facilitate the information, because in Rule 44.1, it is there.
That's true, but the context has been redefined under Rule 44.1. It is with the permission of the Speaker, whether for the purposes of explaining government policy or action upon any matter.
The issue is permission of the Speaker.
The issue is, I don't want, okay, I would propose we don't have a restrictive rule. We have a rule allowing, not to restrict. That's my only problem with it.
So you also remove it for the ministers then?
I wouldn't mind, let the ministers make their statements. Because the rule is allowing them opportunity to make the ministers. They don't have to be. But, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the permission, it is giving the circumstances under which, for purposes of explaining a government policy statement or action upon any matter, with permission of the Speaker.
But that would be the same with the leader of opposition, because the leader of the opposition is going to talk about something that does not relate to any of those things.
Then we don't need with the permission of the Speaker in either rules.
Chief Whip?
After me. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am very much comfortable with the word with the permission from the Speaker. Why? Because the presiding officer, who is the Speaker, when he's presiding, matters come on the floor of Parliament which may require reorganization of the order paper. Sometimes we got the Speaker with issues and he or she guides us as to whether you bring it that day or the following day, depending on other matters that may require equal attention with that. So the word going through the Speaker is harmless. It's harmless. It's unless you have suspicious minds that a Speaker might sit there and say, no, gag you from speaking. But this is for the purposes of order, and, following what is on the order paper.
That is the purpose. Because you see, if you look at Rule 24, 1, if members have the rule, they could look at it. The Speaker shall determine the order of business of the House and shall give priority to government business. That is the rule. That is where Rule 44 is getting it from. That's the general provision. Because I don't know of any other person who will determine order of business in the House. Certainly, if it's not the Speaker, then nobody else can. For purposes of order, you need somebody to be in charge of the order paper, to determine what will go in the order paper. You need somebody to do that.
Right, Honourable Speaker, that's already provided under Rule 24.
That is why you have it also.
However, when you come to the suggestion by the committee and Rule 44, we are talking about allowing a minister or a leader of opposition. It's a right being created. But for orderly management, it is already provided for under Rule 24. That's where the Speaker's powers are, because the order paper is a property of the orders of the Speaker, and it has already been provided for. But this particular rule is creating a right of either the leader of opposition or the minister. We cannot condition it again to the permission of the speaker. And to answer the government chief whip, we provide for rules because there could be a mischief.
Procedure.
That's why we provide for rules.
Procedure.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. With due respect to the submission by Honorable Katuntu, this is the legislature, and I think we are bound by the rules of statutory interpretation. Nobody wants to limit the powers of the leader of opposition. But if the Act of Parliament under which this falls makes that provision, we are bound to follow the provisions of that act unless it's been amended. So I don't see why we are resisting it.
What's the procedure now?
Yes,
this rules are made.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I do not know what Honorable Katuntu is fearing because the rule has been like that. So the question is, have we been having challenges with that rule? The answer is no. And like you have guided, my understanding is that we are not gagging either leader of opposition or the minister. But for instance, I am a minister, I cannot come and just rise and start presenting a statement simply because the rules allow me to do so. It has to be in consultation with the speaker to allow me get on the order paper. And we often use the term, with the leave of the speaker, I present this. So I don't think we should stretch the meaning to mean that the speaker can actually refuse the leader of opposition or the minister. No, no. I disagree.
Chris, if you, Right Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Barriomus is asking me what I'm scared of. Actually, I'm scared of a very bad speaker. You see, it has nothing to do with the speakers. We are making these rules for the future. In case a speaker just says, I'm not granting permission, you.
Point of order.
Right Honorable Speaker, the rules we are making today are rules of the 10th Parliament. And in the 10th Parliament, we have a speaker, we have a deputy speaker. So who are these bad sheep that the Honorable Katuntu is talking about, that is going to provide, to preside over this house? And these rules are for the 10th Parliament. Future parliaments will have opportunity to make their own rules. And so, is the honorable member in order to refer to our presiding officers, the presiding officers who are known for the 10th Parliament as bad sheep? Is he in order?
Honorable members, there was a ruling in 2011 by the Chief Justice, then Justice Benjamin Odoki, to the effect that the rules of procedure of Parliament is the rules of procedure of Parliament, not one Parliament, not two Parliaments, not three Parliaments. A particular Parliament can improve on the existing law, but cannot reenact the rules because they are rules of procedure of Parliament. And Parliament is Parliament.
Most obliged, Right Honorable Speaker.
Can we proceed? Can we proceed? Can we proceed, honorable members? You see,
some clarification.
You see, honorable members, because the leader of opposition is at the same level as a cabinet minister. If you put if, for example, I'm just saying this so that we look at the full import of this thing. If you, instead of having another another section altogether, if you said in 44, you say statement by minister and leader of opposition. You would see that the reading of it has no bias whatsoever, because the same rules, please. Because the same rules will be applied in the same way. If you say in 44, say statement by ministers and leader of the opposition, or leader of the opposition, would you have all these necessary things of removing powers of the speaker and all those things? Would it be necessary? What is being proposed is that you have two parts, one dealing with statement by minister, another one dealing with statement by leader of the opposition, but the same provisions. The same provision. Changing only the word for the minister, you put leader of opposition. Yes, Bukonjo West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Rule 34(5), the leader of opposition shall have a right to comment or reply. But that is in the context of the Prime Minister's time. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to submit as someone who has some knowledge or authority on legislation and to help or enrich this particular item. But when you look at leader of opposition, it's something that has a leadership role. And Mr. Speaker, sir, in this particular case, we're looking at theory and practice. In theoretical terms, there's no difference between theory and practice. But in the practical terms, there is a difference between practice and theory. And this is how it comes about, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about a leader of opposition playing a leadership role. And Mr. Speaker, we should be mindful about our allegiance or subscription to the Commonwealth practice, where in the House of Commons, the leadership, the alternative leadership in the House of Commons certainly have or has unlimited access to the submission in the House of Commons. And in the U.S. or in the U.S. Congress, the leader of opposition or the minority leader has unlimited access. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm at a pain trying to subject the intent to submit authoritatively by the leader of opposition to the objection or clearance of the speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in no way, that is not intended to undermining the authority of the presiding officer that day. It is just to appreciate the leadership role of the leader of opposition. Just like you have, if the minister on the floor submits and the prime minister in the house deems fit that probably he needs to reinforce the submission from the minister, Mr. Speaker, sir, the prime minister does not have, or there is no requirement that we should put in our rules that the prime minister should have prior permission from your office. That is my line of argument that probably aligns to the principles and practice of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You see, by the authority of the law, the two offices are not at the same level. The leader of the opposition is at the level of a cabinet minister, not at the level of a prime minister. That's what the law says. Yes, that's what the law says. Even the constitution says so. So for you to come and say you are practicing Commonwealth practices and start equating leader of the opposition with the prime minister, I think. Honorable members, in the public gallery this afternoon, we have students and teachers from Namirembe Parents Primary School, represented by Honorable Nsereko and Honorable Nabila Simpala. They are here to observe the proceedings. Please join me in welcoming them. We also have students and teachers from Madibira Primary School, represented by Honorable Geoffrey Macho, and Honorable Nabulindo. They are here to observe the proceedings of the House. Please join me in welcoming them. We also have pupils and teachers from St. John's Secondary School, Mukono, represented by Honorable Muyanja and Honorable Kasusira. Please join me in welcoming them. We also have teachers and students from Nakisunga Senior Secondary School in Mukono, represented by Honorable Muyanja and also Honorable Kasusira. They are here to observe the proceedings. Please join me in welcoming them. Kasusira. Kusasira. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable.
Obongi.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I reflected on the explanation you gave to my brother here about the rules, the laws of Uganda and protocol, putting the leader of the opposition at the level of a cabinet minister. But I know that below the leader of the opposition, there are also people here. Ministers of state, yes, ministers of state, members of parliament. When they are allowed to speak, when they bring a statement here to the floor, for example, the rule says a minister may lay a report on the floor of the House, but does not provide emphatically that with the permission of the Speaker. By the time the minister comes here, it is automatically presumed that the Speaker has the time and the arrangement has been made. Why should it be made emphatically that with the permission of the Speaker when it comes to the leader of the opposition? Here, that's where our suspicion arises. It could also be put the other way around. The Speaker may not permit or may permit. Therefore, if we only eliminate the word with the permission of the Speaker, there will be no fear. Because every day we may not get good people all the times. The ones we have now are good, but tomorrow if you get bad ones in the office of the Speaker, this problem will come. We are also political leaders with political inclinations, with political memberships of parties. Suppose what the leader of the opposition is bringing will not augur well with the, not with the rules, but with the feelings, the inner feelings of the person sitting in the office of the Speaker or the chair. This is where our fear comes. Therefore, my submission here is remove the words with the permission of the Speaker, and then all other things remaining constant. Thank you.
Honorable members, you do not think that the authority of the Speaker is important in this matter? Remove it. Remove it. No, just remove it. It's as simple as that. If you think the authority of the Speaker is not important in processing business of the House, remove it. You have the prerogative.
Right on. No.
That is not
yes,
no,
because
no.
Because you cannot remove it for leader of the opposition and leave it for the ministers. So just remove the whole thing. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the general authority of the Speaker is under Rule 7 and has already been passed. And even the 24-1 in respect of the order paper. So I don't think the observations by members that the leader of opposition should be given that right and the ministers would in any way undermine the authority of the Speaker. Because these particular rules will not be read in isolation of Rule 7 and 24-1. So I thought it would be an amendment in good faith. After all, most of the businesses anyway come from statements from the ministers, and we only want to capture the leader of opposition for purposes of enforcing her duties and functions under the Administration of Parliament Act.
So then what is the significance of removing it from 30? You have just said it. From which rule are we dealing with now? The 44, Rule 44. So what is the significance of removing it in Rule 44 if it is in 22? Or 24? What is the significance?
Mr. Speaker, if included in Rule 44, it will tend to be too restrictive in its nature. And yet, if you so wish at any one time to say, no, I would not want the leader of opposition, a particular minister, to make a statement, you would still invoke Rule 7 and Rule 24.
So in other words, we remove it for ministers and we just
and the leader of opposition.
And also for
but
members.
Only retain them.
And also for members.
No, the members you could maintain for purposes of orderliness. Yes, I wouldn't want to be very selfish.
No, but then why have it for members?
Well, Mr. Speaker.
No, if you cannot have your cake and eat it at the same time. If you want to remove it in 44, remove it also in 45 and in the new one, so that you don't have the Speaker involved in 44, the new 44 and 45. Remove it. You cannot say retain in this, remove in this, retain in this, remove in this.
May I?
Yes,
Right,
Kabula.
Honourable Speaker. May I?
Right, Honourable Speaker, thank you. When you look at what they want to propose,
the committee to insert a new rule where the leader of opposition to make a statement.
I thought that's better if we maintain Rule 44, 1 and 2,
so that we leave it to the discretion of the Speaker if the leader of opposition goes to the Speaker when the matter is very important. And we leave it at silent at that. Because Rule 44 says, statement by ministers. You had proposed that ministers or leader of opposition. And down, that one gives a room that if it's not a minister or a leader of opposition, can come and make a statement with appropriate time, with a sequence of business. So I don't see even we go further to insert a new rule which the committee wants to put, because it compounds all the necessary of the personal statements, minister's statements, and I don't see why they want to insert that new rule. As you had proposed, that if you say statement by ministers or leader of opposition, you go further. One, a minister or leader of opposition may make a statement at the appropriate time on the sequence of business prescribed by Rule 24 with the prior permission of the Speaker, whether the purpose of the explaining government policy or action upon any matter. And that one I thought is enough.
No,
you don't need the new rule.
You see, the issue is, that has been the practice, that when the minister is going to make a statement, they do it with the prior or permission of the Speaker. They've been doing that. Now, a new office is getting into this particular province. Say, no, same leader of the opposition with the prior or permission of the Speaker. Same with the members in 45. With the leave of the Speaker, a member may. Now I am saying, if you don't want the Speaker to have leave from the Speaker, then remove it in 44, remove it in the new 44, and remove it also in 45, so that you only rely on 24, like they are saying it is sufficient. You see, that's, so that there is consistency. Because you cannot have for one and leave for the other. Yes, Padiere.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I think your position is very clear, that if it is removed, it should be removed for everyone. However, the fear here is this amendment is not to underrate the power or undermine the power of the Speaker, but to give an assurance on two things. One, a right to the leader of opposition. That may not in any way be probably taken away so easily for no reason. Two, that it should be made mandatory. However, that is subject to the discretionary powers of the Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I would think even in my own little understanding that even when you call the leader of opposition and you talk to the leader of opposition and you feel there is a reason to warrant that the leader of opposition should not in any way make the statement, maybe in your office, it would still suffice that the leader of opposition will not in any way make the statement. So there are only two things here. The amendment intends to infer a right on the leader of opposition, and two, make it not impossible but difficult to be denied that opportunity. I think this is what I'm looking at. Now, if that is the position, I think we can grant it to them. We can grant it to leader opposition and say, fine, it is your right, you'll make the statement, but still the Rule 24 and the Rule 7, and which really talk about your powers, are not undermined in any way. I beg to submit, Right Honourable Speaker.
That's exactly what I have said. I have said if Rule 24 is sufficient, then remove it from 44, 44 the new one, and 45, because they are the same. If 24 is sufficient, why keep it? Yes, Bugweri.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. I don't know why it has caused all this debate. But, Right Honourable Speaker, when you look at statements made under 45(1), they don't appear on the order paper. That's why this rule provides for prior permission, prior leave of the what? Of the Speaker. Statements made by members.
There. Rule 24.
45.
No, Rule 24 2K is there.
Right Honourable Speaker.
No, look at it. It's 2K. It's there.
Did you say 22K?
Rule 24 2K.
It's okay. You see, Right Honourable Speaker, the statement being made under 24K
is either a personal explanation or a brief statement by members.
No, but Right Honourable Speaker, the practice of this House has been that members come to your office and seek permission, and they come here, and it's always the first business. Honorable Bariomunsi, you are the matter trace of national importance. For us in Ichigezi, we don't have this and this and this. Those sort of statements do not appear on the order paper. Instead, the Speaker grants that leave. And before even we start business on the order paper, we go through those statements of national or importance. That's what has been happening. That's why we provide for this.
Honorable Abdu Katuntu, urgent matters are exceptions under Rule 39. That is different. Statement by members are supposed to be reflected on the order paper. Either statement for personal explanation or statement like members have been making. Members make statements on, like Honorable Cooper the other day made, on World Bank something as a personal statement. It was on the order paper. Yes, it was on the order paper. Matters of urgent public importance fall under Rule 39. That is an exception to the rule on notice. Yes, under Rule 39, if a matter is so urgent that it requires immediate action, you come to the Speaker and you proceed under the exception Rule 39, where you do not need notice. You only talk to the Speaker and say, I want to raise this matter, which was raised, 2 of them were raised today. But if it is a matter substantially a member wants to raise, which is not prohibited, it is not an urgent matter, but it's a matter even concerning other things. A member comes under this provision of 24(2)K, and the statement is put on the order paper. It's the same.
What of 45(1)?
That is what we are talking about. The member may make a statement on any matter of urgent public importance relating to the functions of the House. Yes.
Right Honorable Speaker, when you read the new rule and you also try to address yourself to the dictates of the Financial Management Act, it places particular responsibilities to the office of the leader of opposition, which are fairly separate from what could be taken generally as to give positions to political and current affairs. Now, when you read the new rule, it says the leader of opposition, with permission of the Speaker, may make a statement at an appropriate time in reference to the State of Nations Address, budget framework paper, and then the other is general, political, economic, that is general. Now, why we think this is so critical, because later on we intend to even move an amendment that during the budget proposal, the way it's approached here, we need to align it with the demands of the new Financial Management Act. Now, why this becomes a problem with the permission is that when you use the word may with the permission of the Speaker, it may at some time become prohibitive. We've seen part of these provisions when we passed other laws like the Public Order Management Act. Provisions of this nature have been abused. Now, the cure is that on another day, we will not have a land friend, Jacob Olanya, as a Speaker of Parliament. We may have another person under different circumstances. And this country has been, yes, Jovia Komateka and gratification. Okay.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi. This House shall always have a presiding officer, I'm sure now and in the future. I just wanted to seek a clarification whether you mean that we should create a situation where somebody just rises, say, I have a right under the rules, and starts making a statement? Yes, yes. Because what I want to understand is that what will materially change if we remove that provision with the permission of the Speaker? What will change in terms of presenting statements in this House? Will it mean that the leader of opposition or the minister will have nothing to do with the Speaker, will just prepare his or her statement and come and present it? What will change in terms of the practice?
Right Honorable Speaker, Rule 7 and 24 will still pertain to the matters at hand, and the powers of the Speaker will not be constrained in any way. But let me say it on a writer note, Honorable Speaker. One day, let me say it on a writer note and a serious note. One day we had the Speaker of Parliament in the name of Haji Moses Chigongo. He was the Speaker of this Parliament. I see his photo there. So things can change We need not to take things for granted.
Point of order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't understand the Honorable Chivumbi when he says, talks of a bad speaker. To my understanding, the speaker is ably elected by the members of the House and a clear reflection of the feelings of the members in the House. So all is embedded in section number 7, part 2, that the speaker is meant to preserve order and decorum in the House. So Speaker, I want the honorable member to clarify on a bad speaker in relation to elections and in his duty to maintain order and decorum in the House.
So what is the point of order? Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, the spirit of this amendment was never to bring the question of the authority of the Speaker into this debate at all. That was not the purpose of this amendment. Rather, this amendment was proposed to clearly define the role of the leader of opposition with leave of the Speaker. Now, I don't understand how the leader of opposition wanting to come to this floor to make a statement on State of the Nation address or budget without leave of the Speaker would be put on the order paper, for example. How would that happen? Because here we are only trying to say that the Speaker, everything, all the business of the House is actually by leave of the Speaker. So I don't understand how this could happen without leave of the Speaker, and we can still say that the Speaker has authority over this House. I'll take this information.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The information I would like to give you that may clarify. Mr. Speaker, just like the chairman said, the intention of the new amendment is to enshrine the role of the leader of opposition, specifically as far as the State of the Nation is concerned, State of the Nation address, the budget framework paper, and economic, political, and other current affairs, explaining the position of the opposition on the subject matter. Now, we raise it under Rule 44.1 because Rule 44.1 has provided for ministers to make statements. But the heading before Rule 44.1, the heading of Rule 44.1 is statements by ministers, members, and personal explanations. Now, for the leader of opposition specifically, he or she will be reacting to an already existing government position. There is no way the leader of opposition will just stand on the floor of the House and make a statement regarding an already existing government position without prior arrangement with the Speaker that he or she will make such a statement. They will also put something down written and then they will go on the order paper.
Clarification. Clarification. Clarification.
Clarification, sir. Mr. Speaker.
Clarification.
Okay.
I think what you are trying to insert in the new rule, you are defining statements. Me, I thought it should be general, like the original rule. Let me explain myself. If you say that statement, that's the part 9, statements by ministers, members, and personal explanations. These are the headlines. You start with the statement by minister. I want to echo on what the Honorable Speaker said. If we are saying you want, within this category of statements, you want to include the leader of opposition, because these are statements which are given by any person, any member, leader of opposition in this House, You could say statements by minister or leader of opposition. Then you go down 44. Because the moment you don't have an ordinary statements being brought on the floor, because they can be many. And what happens? That's why the general rule, which is 44, the original, it says a minister may make a statement, or you say a minister or a leader of opposition, appropriate time on a sequence of business prescribed by Rule 44. This is trying to ensure the orderly manner you can come and the speaker can give you a chance to do it. Otherwise, you may sit up. So I prefer what the speaker said, that if you are saying you want to behave like in Rule 24 and 44, leave it to say statement by ministers and the leader of opposition, so that you choose what you want to put in a new rule you are inserting. The problem with the original rule, what is the problem with the original rule to insert a new rule?
Mr. Speaker.
Clarification, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, while we received the information or clarification, whichever it was, from the Honorable Kakoza, the amendment on the current Rule 44(1), a minister or the leader of opposition, and it continues up to the end, is welcome. But the challenge is you leave out the core, because the intention of this amendment is to provide for the leader of opposition to make a response regarding these important statements, the State of the Nation address, the budget framework paper, as listed. But if we amend 44(1) specifically to say minister or leader of opposition, fine, but the point is, where shall we have left the role, the response of the leader of opposition on the State of the Nation, the budget framework, and others? So it's the considered opinion of the committee that this amendment be taken in good faith. Just let me complete. This amendment be taken in good faith, specifically with the understanding that is providing for a formal response by the leader of opposition to the State of the Nation, the economic budget, the budget framework paper, and the others. It can not only be with the permission of the Speaker. Just flowing from 44(1), 44(2), it's with the permission of the Speaker. And the only way they can do it is formally, because she is responding officially. They can formally respond with the permission of the Speaker. No, let me just clarify before you seek the clarification. Yes, we can take information.
Members. On where are we on this matter, Honorable Member? You are holding the floor. What is the matter? Can you finish, please, and we move forward?
Mr. Speaker, there is nothing wrong with 44(1), but we are persuading the House on the new amendment because it is providing for the leader of opposition to make a formal response to these important statements which reflect the position of the government. The State of the Nation, the budget framework paper, the economic and political and current affairs.
Clarification, comrade.
So
just one point only. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, the context in which the role of the Speaker comes in need to be looked into. When you go to 44, the matter is about order of business. What comes first? What comes next? Where does priority go? No, first you go to 24. 24, where it reads, the Speaker shall determine the order of business. That is where you can either come on the order paper or not. The issue can come on the order paper or not. That is the order of business. But now when you go to this particular issue, which is bringing the controversy, the response of the leader of the opposition to the State of the Nation address may be targeted to the content. If the speaker is not comfortable with the content, can say not permitted. Even when the order of business is okay, you can say, okay, I am not permitting you because I don't agree with the content. That's where the contents come from. So remove this permission. The order of business is already there, and the general conduct of meetings by the speaker in an orderly manner does not come here, does not arise here. It's not questioned here.
Okay. Honorable members, please, let's wind this up. Please. Honorable members, even when the rules were not making any specific provisions, the practice was that in the motion, when we were debating the motion on the State of the Nation address, the first person to make a reply was the leader of opposition. And the Honorable Nanmadal Mafabi is there, the Honorable Wafola Gutu is there, those who were there, Professor Gengalati were there, those who were here before the budget cycle was changed. When the motion to thank the President for the state of the elaboration of the State of the Nation address, the first person to respond to that debate was the leader of the opposition. And they took 1 hour, 2 hours, that was it, even without the rules. Now, when the rules were changed, when the order of the way we handle the Public Order Management Act was passed, that is where there came a structural problem. Where do you house the leader of the opposition in the course of this? Because we have not even debated the State of the Nation address. We now have no chance to debate the State of the Nation address. So when do we debate it? Because by the time the President is making the State of the Nation address, the budget is passed. Yes. So there have been these structural changes in the way business of the House is done. There has been no rule on how shadow ministers are handled. When do they submit their alternative policies? It was not there. But in the practice, we made sure that they were there, so that the procedures were respected and all aspects of things are accommodated. All these things are done with the authority of the Speaker. I don't know which other authority you want to invoke to determine issues that come on the order paper. Because you see, specifically speaking, Rule 24 shall determine the order of business. If you want to interpret it more strictly, it can say, it can determine what comes first and what comes next. But cannot determine what goes on the order paper. That's in essence what you're trying to say, that the Speaker can no longer determine what goes on the order paper. All the Speaker can do is arrange, this one will come first, this one will come second, this one will come last. That's what now you are suggesting, that the Speaker will have no authority to say, well, bring this one for this week, it is okay, let's handle it this week. The Speaker will not have that authority. That's what you are saying. Yes, that's what you are saying essentially, because 24 is not about what goes on the order paper. It's on the order arrangement of business.
Yes, that one of Speaker.
You see, so let's take a decision. Let's take a decision, because if you do not want because for me, some of the debates we're having are actually not even sustainable, because when will the leader of opposition ever respond to the State of the Nation address when there's no debate in the House? Budget framework paper, even in the absence of these rules of the leader of the opposition responded by the authority of the Speaker. So where is this reading of this new situation that all of a sudden the speakers can no longer be trusted with the business of the house? Really? Really? The speakers can no longer be trusted with the business of the house. These speakers, including Jacob Olanya, who is sitting here, can no longer be trusted with the business of the house, which he has done for now almost 7 years. Budadiri West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are right. Under Rule 24, it's the Speaker who determines the business of the order paper. Likewise, first we have amended our Rule number 24, and we have included the leader of opposition, and we have also included the shadow ministers. So they have been covered. Now, I think here, the wording is maybe the problem, but what I wanted to make so that we proceed. True, you have been doing it without the rules. And if it was other speakers, that's why what we want to chew up, because you have been here and you're still here for a few years to go, but the time will come and others might come, and anything can happen. And you know, when you're amending the rules, you don't amend all of them, you carry good practice. So, Mr. Speaker, we must thank you. And also, we want to protect the institution from those speakers who can act outside, who can become mad. I remember one speaker was here, when he wanted to make a decision, he would look the other side, next item, or it is done. Because I've been here for long, and when you would look that side, you know there will be another decision. And I'm still here. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to say, what the committee was trying to say, the leader of opposition, I want to make an amendment here. The leader of the opposition, in consultation with the Speaker, may make statements at an appropriate, and the rest goes on. The justification is that whether he wants or she wants at any time, first she must do it in consultation with what? With the Speaker, so that we can move to the next step.
And you think in that consultation the Speaker cannot say no?
No, you can say, today you have consulted me, it's not possible.
Because even after consulting the Speaker can still say no.
That's true, but that's for purposes of moving, Mr. Speaker.
Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, this particular amendment actually recognizes the important role that the leader of opposition plays under our Constitution, especially taking from the Administration of Parliament Act, which provides that the leader of opposition, one of the key roles that the leader of opposition plays is to check the government. This is a role far beyond that played by cabinet ministers, and this is why a separate rule had to be made for the leader of the opposition, not just at the level of a cabinet minister. The leader of opposition checks government. So we could not include the leader of opposition in Rule 44. That's why we thought, recognizing that important role that the leader of opposition plays, we will have a new rule. At the same time, I cannot understand how, in this new rule, we will remove with permission or with leave of the Speaker and still assume that Rule 24, Rule 7 will survive a new amendment, because we have to amend those rules. If the Speaker cannot provide leave here, then I don't understand how Rule 24 and Rule 7 would give the Speaker any power over order of business in this House. So really this rule is more in recognition of the special role that the leader of opposition plays, and I don't understand why it is being fought, except that as a committee, we cannot create a rule that removes power from the Speaker. So we shall stand by this proposed amendment.
Leader of the opposition.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the member has put it very clear that basing on the duties of the leader of the opposition, there should be a rule that is not ganked up with other rules. And he has said it, the chairperson of the committee, and I think we would move with that, Right Honorable Speaker. Taking leave of the Speaker, I think we can concede and we say it is okay. We can take leave of the Speaker, as long as there is this rule that provides for a situation where the leader of the opposition will be provided for under the rules to give an address, a response to the state of the nation, will give a response to the budget framework paper, and also be able to give a statement in regard to the political and economic situation of the country. So, Right Honorable Speaker, the leadership of the opposition concedes to that.
Thank you. Can you now restate the amendment taking care of the removing the other things in line with the, since we have amended 24, can you now restate the new proposal in line with the 44.1, but making those modifications to accommodate specifically the other roles of the leader of the opposition? Because the wording has been modified. Now you are making reference to Rule 24 because the leader of the opposition statement has now been included there instead of the original text. Could you now restate it for the record?
Right Honorable Speaker, the committee proposes a new rule as follows. A statement by the leader of opposition. The leader of opposition.
A new rule after 44.
A new rule after Rule 44. A statement by the leader of opposition. The leader of opposition may, with leave of the Speaker, make a statement at an appropriate time in reference to the State of the Nation address, the budget framework paper, economic, political, and current affairs, explaining the opposition, the position of the opposition on the matter.
Would it not be better if you followed the procedure? Say, for example, the leader of opposition may make a statement at the appropriate time on the sequence of business prescribed under Rule 24 with the prior permission of the Speaker regarding those issues, State of the Nation, budget framework paper, so that there's consistency.
Okay. Okay. Right Honorable Speaker, we propose a new rule to be inserted immediately after Rule 44 to read as follows. The leader of opposition may make a statement at the appropriate time on the sequence of business prescribed by Rule 24 with prior permission of the Speaker, whether for the purposes of making an alternative statement with regard to the State of the Nation address, budget framework paper, economic, political, current affairs, explaining the position of the opposition on the matter.
Is that okay?
Small amendment. Just a small amendment. After budget framework paper, after budget, with your permission, Chair, after budget framework paper, would love to just amend and say proposed annual budget. Proposed annual budget.
Further amendment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair, I propose that instead of inserting social or political, we put government, we insert government policy or action upon any matter, not restricting it, without restricting his or her submission to the social or political. After all, State of the Nation addresses the political perspective, and then the budget is the economic perspective. So, yeah, so, Mr. Chair, your attention, that we submit, that we drop the social political and substitute that with government policy or action upon any matter.
Padiere?
Now, Right Honourable Speaker, I think the amendment is not clear in line to Rule 24 on the order of business. I thought then if we include the statement of the leader of opposition, and then we should create a standalone numbering, which could be after K, that is 24.
No, that one we already did. That one we did. We said we adopted it, and we said it will be now inserted in the drafting.
Oh, thank you.
In the redraft, it will be, that one we did already. That's why we're now dealing with this. The Chair, the leader of opposition may make a statement at the appropriate time on the sequence of business prescribed by Rule 24 with the prior permission of the Speaker regards to the State of the Nation address, budget framework paper, budget proposal, alternative policy, or any action upon any matter. Yes, or alternative policy or action upon any matter. So that there is
Honourable
consistency.
Speaker, the committee has no problem with the amendment as read by you.
Yes, can I put the question to this amendment now? I put the question to the amendment. Will those in favor say aye? To the contrary, no. So then there is the override, the subsequent thing, the second one. Statement made by the leader of the opposition may be, Chair.
We propose a new sub-rule 2 to be inserted immediately after Rule 44, following from the amendment, to read as follows. The statement made by the leader of opposition may be debated by the House, provided that such a debate shall not exceed 1 hour.
Okay. The statement made by the leader of the opposition may be debated, provided that such debate shall not exceed 1 hour. I put the question to that amendment. Will those in favor say aye? To the contrary, no. There is have it. Next.
Right Honourable Speaker, the committee proposes a new rule on voting in the House to be inserted immediately after Rule 86 as follows. Voting in the House. Every member present in the House at a time of voting shall cast a vote. Sub-rule 2. Voting in the House shall be by A, voice voting, B, secret voting, C, electronic voting, D, division, or E, roll call and tally. Justification to introduce the different methods of voting in the rules.
I put the question that amendment. Will those in favor say aye? To the contrary, no. Yes, Bugweri. Bugweri, then I have the honourable.
The proposal is every member in the House shall cast a vote. It takes away the right of a member not to cast a vote.
No, every member must cast a vote. And there are 3 aspects of voting. You either vote yes, you vote no, or you abstain. And abstention is a vote. Because they say those in abstention and you are counted, that 5 people have abstained. So there is no room for sitting around and not doing anything.
Actually, that is exactly my point.
Abstention.
yes, that there is a room for me not to participate in that process. And that should be my right. I cannot be required by the rule that I must either vote this or this. I may just have a distrust in the whole process, and I say, I'm not participating. And that should be my right.
You see, honorable members, we had a similar situation where a vote was called, there was quorum in the House, and when the counting was done, 5-7 members opted not to vote anyway. It is not their right, because you should vote either yes, or vote no, or abstain from the vote. And that abstention should be recorded as a vote. Those in abstention are 5. But you cannot sit, constitute quorum, and then withdraw quorum when you are sitting in the House. Because when they are tallying the final vote, 5 people have voted yes, 5 people have voted, 10 people have voted no, 3 people have abstained. Total would be 18. But if there are 6 other members that have not voted, they have affected the quorum of the House, which is not right. Suppose quorum is 20, and you have 23 members sitting, and 5 of them have not voted either way. You will now conclude that there was no quorum when actually there was quorum.
Right, Honourable Speaker. I do concur with you on one thing, that a vote, when a member is part of the quorum noted by the Speaker, is part of the vote. So quorum and the vote are two different things, and I think we should not confuse the two. Quorum is called provided the process we undertake in the House. And I would like to believe that a member abstaining retains the right. Their participation is by not siding by either of the sides contesting. But they have a right to abstain, but they do not invalidate quorum. That's my take.
You know what the Honorable Member for Bugweri is proposing? That he can sit in the House. When the vote for yes is called, he does not vote. When the vote for no is called, he does not vote. When the vote for those abstaining is called, he also does not vote. And yet he's in the House. No, that is wrong. That cannot be, if you are protesting, then don't sit in the House, because you constitute quorum and yet you are affecting it. No, then you walk out. So don't be part of the quorum. Because let me give you an example. If quorum, current quorum is what, how many members? 181. Let's say, no, that's not quorum. How many people are required to take a vote currently in this parliament? How many? What is a third of our number now? 200 and what? 1/3. Okay, in the previous parliament, the quorum was 125. 125. Now, if you have 126 members in parliament, when the vote is called, that means there's quorum. Now, if 100 of them voted yes, and 10 of them voted no, and only 5 of them abstained, and the total vote now counted is 115, and yet the members in the House are 125. You are now saying that House was not competent to vote, and yet it is competent to vote because there's quorum. So, in order that the records are reflected properly, if you do not want to support or oppose it, you abstain from the vote. And that abstention vote is recorded. So that the total becomes 126 as of the members present. But you will have abstained on the record that 5 people have abstained from this vote. And it is recorded. But you cannot say, I have a right not to do any of the 3, and I am in the House. That would not be proper. No, it is not. It is not. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very important decision which you've made. I beg to move that ruling be captured as part of our rules on the modes of voting that will be either yes, no, or abstention.
And those are the only votes anyway, Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, I entirely agree with that. And in the spirit of what the Shadow Attorney General has just said, this committee,
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I need a clarification.
Sorry.
I need a clarification.
From who?
From the chair on the very first one, the first sub-rule of the new rule. Every member present in the House at the time of voting shall cast a vote. And yet, we have not changed, we have not amended Rule 86. And Rule 86 is saying the Vice President, Prime Minister, or a minister who is by virtue of Article 78 of the Constitution is an ex-officio member of Parliament and shall not vote in the House. And here we are saying every member present in the House must cast a vote. There is a lot of inconsistency there, and we need to clarify on that. Thank you.
Every member entitled to vote.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to seek clarification from the chair. You're saying here, under each vote, we are clear on the yes, the no, and the abstention. Under the voice voting, Mr. Chairman, how do we capture the abstentions? Under voice voting, how do we capture the abstentions? Would you like to add an amendment that after the ayes and noes, the Speaker then finds out who are those abstaining?
Lastly, Mr. Speaker.
Clarification.
Right Honorable Speaker, during voice voting, I think it is the ears of the Speaker that capture the ayes, the nays, and those who keep quiet. I don't know how it is done, but I think the Speaker knows how to do it.
Clarification, Speaker.
What do you propose?
You sit down, you're younger. Right Honorable Speaker, I think the point raised about ex-official members must be captured under that item 1, under 1 voting in the House. Because if we say the way we have said it and leave it there, then we have not clarified, because every member present, maybe we need to put exception, with the exception of ex-official members, so that we clear any doubt. I don't know how the legal persons can guide us, but I feel uncomfortable if we leave it the way it is. Thank you.
Every member entitled to vote.
Honorable Speaker, entitled is not here.
No, that's the amendment of proposal.
Oh, the amendment. Yeah. Okay. Chair, can you confirm that you have accepted that amendment?
Mr. Speaker.
Right Honorable Speaker, would it satisfy the honorable member if the committee proposed that we said, subject to Rule 86, every member present in the House at the time of voting shall cast a vote?
That's correct.
Chair.
That's matter.
Clarification, Chair. Mr. Speaker, I am concerned about
the clarity of sub-rule 2, voting in the House shall be by. I wanted to propose that the statement should read that voting in the House shall be by any one of the following, so that at any one time we are voting, we apply one of the following methods. Because supposing somebody gets up and says, voting in the House shall be by, you have used only one method to vote, and there are 5 methods indicated here. If you vote using one method, you have not used the other 4. Can somebody challenge you? So this is why I'm raising this, for purposes of clarity. I wanted to propose that voting in the House shall be by any one of the following. Thank you.
Chair, can we do all the votes in one, all of them in one transaction? That amendment proposed?
Right Honorable Speaker, I think this is a drafting matter which can be done to capture the
Please.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, Mr. Speaker, under 2, when say voting in the House shall be by, we list voice voting, comma, secret ballot, secret voting, comma, electronic voting, comma, division, or roll call and tally. It's interpreted that these are listed as possibilities.
That's correct. Or is the important word in that provision? Yes.
Now, Right Honorable Speaker, we need to appreciate your legislative drafting ability, which I think you are even lecturing at LDC, for the benefit of those who do not know. Now, you ably explain on the issue of voting yes or no, or abstaining. And the interpretation on the quorum is that as soon as you abstain, whether expressly you've stated it or not, it will be interpreted to mean that you constituted part of the quorum, and therefore the whole electoral process is validated. That I understood very well. But in the event that we don't capture your abstention, or a person's abstention, I'm not saying you or me, but any other person who is abstaining, but has the clear intention of not completely participating and does not want to go out, I thought we could cure it by even those abstaining to say on record, so that if it is interpreted that those who did not say yes or no are actually people abstaining, assuming there are 5, if we ask them to say like on record, and then only 3 confirm, then the other 2 must be expunged from being part and parcel of the quorum. I beg to submit, Right Honorable Speaker. I don't know whether I make some sense there.
You see, honorable members, the new rule that is being proposed is immediately after Rule 86. They have not proposed an amendment on 87, 88, 89, 90. Those ones have remained. And even 91 on the division that is called upon by the Speaker. So the details of the voting process on each one of them is in the specific rules that deal with that particular kind of voting. For voice voting, it's a certain also recognized kind of voting where you do not record abstentions. You establish that the numbers are there, it's either yes or no, and then you do it. But when it comes to secret vote, the provisions are there. When it comes to roll call and tally, the provisions are there. When they say Honorable Ruth Nankambira, how do you vote? I abstain. And it is recorded that an abstention. Or I vote yes, it is recorded. Or I vote no, it is recorded. The situation that Honorable Katundu was trying to introduce is where a particular member in roll call and tally, I don't know how they will do it. If a particular member is called, that Honorable member for Bugweri, how do you vote? Then you say, I'm not voting. You just keep quiet. You keep quiet. Okay, if you say you are not voting, you have abstained from the vote. But if you keep quiet, should you be allowed to keep quiet when you are part of the quorum to be recorded as members present? Suppose then by the time of decision time and they count the numbers and you are short of quorum by one, what is the implication? Because when the speaker is establishing quorum, they counted him. If he had been out of the house, the speaker would have counted and found that there is no quorum and that decision would not have been taken. But if you are in the house and you have constituted the quorum, but in the final tallied vote, you are missing and affecting quorum, then it's a crisis. That is how we found ourselves in a situation one time and the motion was lost based on that. 5 members did not vote yes, no, or abstain. So there was no record of them, and yet they were in the house. You see where the challenge is? So we need to be clear about this thing, honorable members. The decency of participating in this debate require you to vote either yes or no, or you abstain. 3 kinds of voting where it is so required to be exercised. Yes, Kawempe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm greatly convinced with your explanation. Because even if you have not taken either of the 3, but at the end of the day, you have voted, you have abstained. Yes, Mr. Speaker, if someone says that I'm not participating, it means he has voted through the other category of abstainance. So there is no way, it's not practical.
No, but suppose he keeps quiet.
If he keeps quiet, we take it that he has abstained.
No, you cannot take it that because it's recorded on the microphone. How do you vote? I abstain. It is recorded. And then for you are quiet. How will they record it?
Mr. Speaker, it's not practical. There is no way. How can someone keep quiet when we are voting? So it is not practical at all. Unless, Mr. Speaker, unless when time of voting,
Information.
Okay.
Right, Honorable Speaker, it is possible. And it has happened. In a desperate situation, if you want to cause a dialogue on a matter, and some people want to use their number, you can use your 1 to nullify. You can use your 1 to nullify the process by just keeping quiet, because I've not been captured and you have not got the quorum, and I've used my tactics to cause you to negotiate. So at least I will use various ways to make sure that we go back to rethink the process. It has happened before, right, Honorable Speaker.
The decent way would be for you to withdraw from the vote by leaving the chamber. That is the point, because if you are part of the quorum, you cannot again deny quorum. You cannot deny quorum when you are part of the quorum.
Right, Honorable Speaker. I think in that spirit of explanation, I was thinking we could, why don't you bring a standalone provision to provide for that? That in the event that a person does not participate under roll and call, okay, the non-participation by the member invalidates the process as far as, yes, to cure the situation, because I may want to sit inside I'm not participating, but also I want to cause, a point of trade-off negotiation. So we could it even become more clear, like the Honorable Latif was kind of not clear about it. It will become very clear that yes, saying I'm not participating is abstaining. Now, those who have kept quiet, expand them from, and we put a provision that where, yes.
You see, honorable members, let's understand the situation properly. I am required to establish quorum before I call a matter to vote. And I establish quorum that there are enough members to vote on this matter. If quorum is 150, I have 150 or 155 members in the House. And I call the vote and we start the vote. When I tally the vote finally, it is 145. There is no quorum. And yet there is quorum when I call the vote. What has happened? So in other words, I have taken a vote which should not have been taken. Because the implication is that if that is found, then that vote is lost. That motion is lost. But you don't want to, but you all know, I don't know whether you were here in the last parliament when these issues came up. Yes. You were here and you saw what happened. So you don't want to repeat of this kind of situation where 5 members refuse to vote, including senior members of the House. Some say we did not want to. How do you not participate?
Right, Honorable Speaker.
If you don't want to participate, the thing to do is make the Speaker know that there is no quorum by you being away, so that I don't put the matter to vote.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker. In a multi-party dispensation, there is no way you can stop members from using all methods to lobby, or for using all methods to have the ideas passed or rejected. And one of the methods that one can use is to use that, because that's a very powerful tool of the minority. And for me, I've been in the minority forever. And I find that it will be unfair. It will be unfair.
And you have no intentions of changing the status quo.
Right, Honorable Speaker, it will be unfair to rob me or to take away my tool of survival. Because, right, Honorable Speaker, I'm quite sure you have understood my view. It is a tool of negotiation, and it is a very powerful tool of negotiation. And I'm asking the chair to try and accommodate this minority tool into the rules. I thank you.
Right, Honorable
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are here to represent our people. I think it would be unfortunate that the time for decision making, I'm in the House and I keep quiet. What kind of representation would that be? How will it be for a voter to go to a polling station and you pick a ballot paper and then you move through the polling station and go? What has taken you there? So I think it is important that we strengthen this rule and ensure that if you are in the House and you are counted, you must vote. You must make a decision. You must make a decision on behalf of the people. Yes.
Clarification. Right, Honorable Chair. The clarification I'm seeking from the Minister is that assuming the Speaker ascertains quorum and 3 people decide to move out after ascertaining quorum, what will be their right?
But before voting.
Before voting, yes.
Then there will be no voting. There will be no voting because there will be no quorum. If I establish that there are 150 members of parliament that constitute quorum and they are there and they are ready to vote, and immediately I call the vote, 5 members walk out, I cannot take the vote. But if you sit here and I take the vote with you inside, You should vote.
Honourable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Today I'm representing the Attorney General on this side. And I just wanted to say that voting in Parliament is provided for in the Constitution. If you read Article 89, 1, it says, except as otherwise prescribed by this Constitution or any law consistent with this Constitution, any question proposed for decision of Parliament shall be determined by a majority of votes of the members present and voting in a manner prescribed by the rules of Parliament. One way of interpreting it could mean by a majority of the members present and voting, meaning having the right to vote in Parliament. So this actually strengthens your guidance, that as long as you are in the House and you have the right to vote, you are an elected member of Parliament in the House, then by the time they call for quorum, then you have to vote. And if you keep quiet, it should be interpreted as abstention. You have abstained. You have not expressed your opinion either yes or no. You have abstained. So you have also participated in the voting. So that's the guidance from the Attorney General on this side.
Right Honourable Speaker.
Kinkizi.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Kinkizi West.
Right Honourable Speaker, a precedent has already been set where someone who has not voted cost the Parliament. As Honourable Bahat has said, we came here to represent the people, and any voting done in the Parliament is meant to benefit the country. Now, unless circumstances where a member does not want to vote on a matter, why don't you express it? Why do you want to hide? So to me, Right Honourable Speaker, I'm of the view that a member of Parliament who shies away from voting should even empower his people to resign. Because you came here to represent people. And if you feel you can you are constrained to submit, then you also say that you have no ability to submit. That is my submission, my Right Honourable Speaker.
Clarification.
Palisa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, initially I thought this was quite obvious, but I'm realizing that it has been made a little complicated. From your guidance, you have been emphasizing distance, and I would really think that it's quite decent that when we are in this House and a matter is put forward for our decision, we must decide. So I am allowed the freedom to vote against, for, or abstain. But if I think I have ground and reason to negotiate, I think I can deny the House quorum by withdrawing. But it would be very unfair for me to keep here and then say I am not taking any of those positions. If really you decided to opt out and the House is denied quorum, don't you think you will be called for a negotiation? I think that would be better than sitting here and saying I will not take any of the three positions, I will just be there, and then you are counted as if you are not there when you are actually there. So I would really think that we can still, I see Honorable Cecilia rising. I asked you for a clarification and you didn't give me. But what I'm saying is, I still believe the provisions given here and the guidance given by the Speaker can cater for someone or a party that wants to create room or an opportunity for negotiation. Step out, the House will not be able to vote.
and definitely you will be called, and because there will be no quorum. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right Honourable Speaker.
Procedure.
Procedure, Right Honourable Speaker. I think we are just debating around. We have already agreed and you have diagnosed the problem. You have said there is no way anybody or any rule can dictate to you to speak or not to speak. To state your abstention, your approval, or your denial. You cannot legislate to force me to do. That is our democratic right to abstain, to say yes, to say no, or to keep quiet. That's my democratic right. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to help, Right Honourable Speaker, to help the committee, to accommodate that. And I can give you the Kigali experience, Right Honourable Speaker, just to explain. That's why I want to give you procedure. In the case of the situation we face in the AU, when we were to vote for our candidate, Dr. Speciosa Kazibu, the whole entire Western Bloc, who were there in the summit of heads of state, decided to decline not to vote. They were there. So AU was denied quorum and there was no voting. So it can be done. It may be one vote, it may be 28, like in the case, like in that case it was, I think there were 28 who denied us the quorum. So even in our house, let's accept that it can happen. But how do we provide this in the rule? We have already acknowledged that it can happen. How can we accommodate it in the rule? Don't wait until it happens, then we start scratching our heads. But let's deal with it now, that it is my democratic tool of survival as a politician. If I know that it is a tool of my future desire or negotiation, or is a tool of my survival, you can't remove it from me. But you must make a law that accommodates that situation. So we have told you. So, Right Honourable Speaker, I'm seeking the guidance, your guidance, whether it's procedure, whether it is necessary for us to continue discussing, you know, if you are there, then why do you keep quiet? I've decided to keep quiet, so you can't plead with me. Now, you don't have to plead with me, and you don't have to force me. So, Right Honourable Speaker, procedure, can we then ask the committee, or the chair committee, the chair of the committee, to accommodate the issues that we have been debating, because it's a democratic principle, and being a democratic principle, we have to find a way of accommodating it. Procedure, Right Honourable Speaker, can you guide us? Thank you.
Can I guide on the procedure? Honorable members, if you are inside Parliament, in the chamber of Parliament, and a vote is called and you are in the chamber, if you do not want to participate in that vote, you walk out. You walk out. That is the decent thing to do. You vote. If you don't want to support either side, you abstain, but you are recorded as having cast your vote. You would have cast your vote in abstention. But if you want to withdraw quorum, you cannot withdraw quorum when you are sitting in constituting quorum. It should be put in the rules. If that is the level of where we are reaching, then it should be clear enough to be put in the rules. Honorable members, it is not as if it was not even anticipated. It is even in the rules as they are now. Rule 90, sub-rule 7. A member is not obliged to vote, and any member who does not wish to vote shall not enter a division lobby while a division is in progress. And that should be a standard rule for all kinds of votings where counting of vote is required. If it is voice voting, probably that cannot apply. But if it is vote by division, if you do not intend to participate in that vote, don't enter the division. If it is by roll call and tally, and you don't want to vote one way or the other, then don't be part of the quorum. Withdraw from the chamber, so that people know whether they are able to take a decision or not. But when you go out, you will deny quorum for parliament and will not proceed. You see, it is as clear as that, honorable members. You cannot sit here and they call the vote for yes and you don't vote. They call the vote for no, you don't vote. They call those abstaining, you also don't abstain. So what are you doing here?
Right, Honorable Speaker.
If you are observing, you go to the gallery.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Right, Honorable Speaker, I'd like you to thank you so much for your wise ruling and guidance, because we must be leaders of integrity. We tell our people that they should exercise their right to vote. And for you, you cannot come to Parliament not vote.
Order.
So I'd like to...
Point of order.
Madam, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I wanted to find out from Honorable Komateka. She is saying we should be leaders of integrity.
Yes.
Yet,
I am so
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for a member to come and say that we are not members of integrity?
Honorable members, it is not proper to impute any other kind of motive or say things that affect the dignity of a member of this house. But to attribute it to the whole house is even worse. I think we are members of integrity and we leave it at that. Unless you personally feel otherwise, that will be a matter for you, which will not be for the house.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry the way I put it, but I just wanted to say that it is very important for us to be able to project the positive image of integrity that we would want to see grown up in the people that we represent. That since we want them to exercise their right to vote, it is very important for us that when time comes to vote, we do not shy away. That we either vote yes or no, or we abstain openly, rather than wanting to...
Procedure.
Rather than wanting to hide the position and our stand. Thank you, Right Honorable
Mr. Speaker, procedure.
Procedure from Bokoli Island.
Right Honorable Speaker, I also first of all concur with your very, very intelligent advice. But as a matter of procedure, Mr. Speaker, I would want to get it from you.
that I vote or I abstain. Then someone comes and then says, I'm not voting, I'm not abstaining, I'm not speaking. What procedure are we going to use on this person who has come into the house, he is keeping quiet, and he has refused? How are we going to deal with this person in the house, Mr. Speaker?
Koboko.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are here, decision makers, and we must make decision to show our people that we are representing them well. But if we are voting and you have ascertained the quorum, that the quorum is fine, everybody is there and the camera is all focusing on you, then when you are called and you keep quiet, we assume you are abstaining. Yes. So that even if it's not recorded, because the camera have already seen, so let us assume those who keep quiet are they are abstaining. That is very clear, because you can abstain by keeping quiet or by saying I have abstained. But this issue of saying is a tactics of democracy. I think that is the worst type of tactics you can use. Thank you very much.
Lugazi Municipality.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Microphone.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. When you look at Rule 98, the answer is very clear in cases where a member chooses to either keep quiet, not to do anything. It reads, a record shall be made of the names of members who abstain. And this is in our existing rules. This will have sorted very well.
You know, abstention is a vote.
But
abstention is a vote. Abstention means they say those supporting say, those opposed, and those abstaining. You are counted as people abstaining. But the situation we are dealing with is where somebody is not voting yes, is not voting no, is not even abstaining. So the 8 will not apply.
Honorable Speaker,
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. In light of your guidance, wouldn't it be correct that as we make our rules, we define abstention to include keeping quiet when a vote is called, so that it's very clear that abstention means either you say I abstain or you keep quiet. Both of them constitute abstention. So we define abstention in our rules, and then that will solve the matter.
Soroti.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I have a live example of that tool working in this country, in the general elections of this country. What produced Kibale County that we have a representation today in this parliament was because of that tactic. When we went to vote for MP for Butebu County, Kibale, the constituency that it is now, refused to vote in a national voting. They had a voters register, but they saw it was their right. And I think it is one of the things that we can exercise. Mr. Speaker, as we grow our democracy, we must allow the minority also to exercise whatever they can exercise to bring reason. So just to include this in Parliament does not mean, in the rules of procedure, does not mean we are going to be unruly or something, but it's just, I think it's a level of maturity in our democracy.
No, the level of maturity in this situation, you walk out. You don't participate in the vote at all. You don't vote yes, you don't vote no, you don't abstain. You are just not there. You are not counted, like the Kibale people did not show up at the polling station. Masaka municipality is very far from Padiere.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I listened to the submission of my senior, the Honourable Cecile Gwal, and I was really convinced and persuaded by her point of view. You know, on reflection, this particular subclause lies at the core of our democracy. Sometimes cementing a democracy allows for space for nuisance. And I would like to persuade the House, while we are legislating and for posterity, to leave room for a possible cause for nuisance. This nuisance actually regulates.
Are you suggesting that members can be a nuisance?
Necessarily figuratively used, Right Honourable Speaker. Figuratively used. And you appreciate, I know, Speaker, what I'm saying. Figuratively used to imply that sometimes it's these kind of artificial roadblocks that calls the majority to order to reflect on the rights of the minority. And it's actually practiced in the Commonwealth, which I know the Speaker is the biggest scholar of some of these practices.
No, please do not talk about the Commonwealth on this issue of people sitting in the House and they don't participate in it. Please mention the specific country.
Right Honourable Speaker, practice in the Commonwealth does not mean uniformity.
Yes, but just mention, because practice means somebody does it. Who? Which parliament does it?
Right Honourable Speaker, actually part of the privilege in the Commonwealth is that a particular house can actually originate a practice that is copied. And here we are, in legislating for liberalism in our laws, we are saying because the Commonwealth advocates for a liberal view of matters where we differ, we can actually be one of those that will eventually even put it in our rules. That you see, these matters will come up, we disagree, there should be no room because the next sub-rule will be a sanction. Right, Honourable Speaker, you are going to put a sanction in the next sub-rule if this obtains. I do not know how we are going to put a sanction to members.
The information I would like to give you in the Commonwealth's practice is not in the rule, but if I know that a subject is being discussed, which is likely some of the subjects which may not be of your liking or your people may not like it, you can actually influence the thinking of the people by eloquently discussing a matter that takes their mind away from the subject. And I think the English call it filibustering. And there's no way they can stop you because you will be talking so passionately that people have to listen to you. But the whole idea is to take their mind away from here, shift it somewhere else. It will soften the ground. Now, you can't put it in the rules.
Thank you, Senior.
So, Right Honourable Speaker, the information I want to tell you is that the information I want to give him is that there are several tools, but we cannot accommodate it in the law. But it is allowable. It is a practice. I've just told you now about filibustering. Now, if I'm going to use filibustering method, how are you going to stop me? Now, I'm saying I will sit in the House, I will not say anything, and because I know why I have not said anything. If you are asking me to go out, I will not go because it's raining outside, and I don't want to go. I'm not feeling well. So you are not going to legislate for the sergeant at arm to lift me like a dead body and take me out. It's not a democratic practice. So let us adopt a democratic practice. That is the information I want to give you. Thank you.
And Right Honourable Speaker, her information is very appropriate because we are aware that the Commonwealth practice are like a peremptory norms, Right Honourable Speaker. Yeah, they are peremptory, they are not written anywhere. Through practice and adoption and adaption, they became practices. And I believe we cannot agree and move this House. No, because the next sub-rule could be a sanction like she's observing. How are we going to discuss a sanction? In case a member does not vote, does not abstain, so what do you do? Next is the sanction. That will be difficult.
Chair?
Right Honourable Speaker.
Casilo, then I have the chair.
Thank you, Right Honourable.
Mr. Speaker, I just was rising to give information to my colleague here because he kept on referring to the Commonwealth. I just wanted to give him a live example. One time in 2008, I happened to be in the British Virgin Islands for some Commonwealth parliamentary work, and there was a bit of heated debate, a political debate. What he's trying to explain did happen in the British Virgin Islands. A member protested by not voting yes or no, not even abstaining. But he just protested, he got up and just stood and protested, keeping quiet. So that's the information I want to give my member here.
Right Honourable
Chair.
Speaker, I am sympathetic to the opinion that has been raised by my colleagues, but at the same time, I would like to remind the members of this House of the weighty responsibility that Rule 163 puts on the shoulders of the Committee of Rules and Privileges. Specifically, Rule 163C says, by order of the House, the committee will review these rules from time to time and make such recommendations to the House for amendment as the committee considers necessary for the satisfactory functioning and efficient transaction. I really believe that the amendment that my colleagues are asking me to introduce is beyond my powers to introduce, because this would be the most inefficient way of managing the House, and we cannot introduce, we cannot put in the rules a situation where the House, a member would be part of the initial quorum of the House, and then immediately, when voting is taken, we are giving a member the right to withdraw quorum after he has been part of the quorum, and so every vote of this House would be subject.
Procedure. We are not asking for your help in any way. The moment the committee brings
you are addressing the chair and you don't require his help?
Yeah.
You are addressing the speaker.
Right Honourable Speaker.
And you don't require my help, so why are you raising the procedural point?
Right.
You don't require my help.
The procedure I'm raising is that he says, that the chair said that whatever we are asking is beyond his powers. And I'm trying to proceed and remind him that when he brings the report to the House, he doesn't own it anymore. It is now before the House, presided over not by you but by the Speaker. So this is an opportunity where this issue has been raised to enrich your report, which is before the House, presided over by the Speaker, not by you. So really, it would be procedurally wrong for you to say it is beyond your powers. That's the procedure I would like to bring to your attention.
But you already ruled on it, so what can the Speaker do when you already ruled on the matter? Honourable members, it is either we want to process these rules and finish them, or we don't. It cannot be anywhere in between. If we do not want to proceed with the rules as of now, I'll stand it over and handle other business. I'll suspend the proceedings of the rules and deal with other business. Next item. Rules suspended.
Item number 5, motion for presentation consideration and adoption of the report of the Committee on Gender, Labour and Social Development on Occupation Safety and Health.
Mr. Speaker, sir, all members, I beg to present the report of the Sector Committee on Gender, Labour and Social Development on Occupation Safety and Health in Uganda. Mr. Speaker, sir, the report was sent to members' gadgets last week. Therefore, I hope that we are moving together as we consider this very important subject. The actual report begins on page 2. Mr. Speaker, sir, on 24th August of last year, the Minister of State for Labour, in charge of employment and industrial relations, presented to this House a statement on occupation safety and health in this country. The House found the statement unsatisfactory, and accordingly, the Speaker referred the statement to the Gender Committee for further analysis and reporting back. I am accordingly reporting on behalf of the committee. The Speaker, sir, the fact that the occupation safety and health issues are very serious concern cannot be underestimated. According to International Labour Organization, 2.2 million people die annually worldwide as a result of non-compliance with occupational and safety standards. Occupational hazards fall under 4 categories: physical, biological, chemical, and psychosocial. They lead to injury, illness, disability, and death. They are very difficult to treat and can lead to depression, mental illness, and even suicide. Mr. Speaker, the committee set out to achieve the following objectives: to establish the level of awareness of employers and employees about occupational safety and health, to ascertain whether there are records about occupational safety and health in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, to find out the systems developed by the Ministry to monitor compliance with occupational safety and health standards, and to establish the level of compliance by employers with these standards. Lastly, was to find out the capacity of the Ministry in securing redress for persons who suffer injury due to non-compliance with occupational safety and health requirements. Mr. Speaker, the House adopted the following methodology. We interacted with the following key agencies: the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, the Central Organization of Free Trade Unions, Nile Breweries Limited, Kasira Sugar Works, Tembo Steel Mills in Uganda, Toro Cement Limited, Uganda Group of Companies, Quest Form Industries, Sadorin Paints, Civil Aviation Authority, and local governments in Kamuri and Uganda districts. The committee also consulted various lawsuits, which include, but are not limited to, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, the Employment Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Plant Examination Workplace Restoration Fees, and the Workers' Employment Act. Mr. Speaker, these are the findings and recommendations. The committee found out that activities by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development sensitize the relevant stakeholders are insufficient. Every year, the Ministry conducts weekly activities to mark the International Day for Safety and Health Week on 28th of April. The Ministry has also been working with the media to disseminate information and plans to intensify media campaign through press releases in newspapers explaining the requirement for occupational safety and health. The committee observed that there are low levels of awareness about occupational safety and health among many employers and employees. Some employers are aware of the standards, but do not want to implement them. Top-level managers know much more than low-level cadres. Many newly recruited workers do not undergo safety orientation, while old ones do not undergo refresher training. Introduction of new machines or chemicals is not normally followed by safety training. While safety health committees at workplaces are key in raising awareness about occupational safety and health, some of them exist as a formality and do not meet objectives for which they were established. The Employment Act provides for a complaints mechanism for workers against violation of their rights. However, many workers do not know these complaints mechanisms and therefore did not take advantage of them. Trade unions in this country have not empowered their members to take note of occupational safety and health concerns at workplaces. Instead, the focus of trade unions has been on advocating for increased remuneration, better pay, but not better safety, better pay, but not better health. The committee recommends that all companies should conduct occupational safety and health induction training for new employees to adequately equip them for occupational safety health challenges. All the employees should undergo refresher training. New employees should undergo health checks before deployment and be subjected to periodic medical checks. The committee urges the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development to pay special attention to the many assuming and new companies because they tend to ignore requirements of occupational safety and health. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee considered availability of records relating to occupational safety and health in this country. The committee was informed that to date, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has been able to register 1,808 workplaces in this country. But we know that there are more than 1 million workplaces in this country. Therefore, records relating to occupational safety and health are insufficient. There are many companies and workplaces which are not registered with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Hence, they are functioning illegally because the law requires that every workplace must be registered with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Some workplaces are inspected and given certificates to operate, yet the conditions on the ground are clearly in a dire state with regard to occupational safety and health. There is a poor record keeping by the ministry. This affects inspection and enforcement of standards. Most of the registered workplaces are offices and banks, leaving out many industries that are high-risk workplaces. The committee recommends the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development should work with the Uganda Registration Services Bureau to register and license all workplaces in this country. The committee also recommends that the Ministry should domesticate all international standards about occupational safety and health. Mr. Speaker, the committee considered the monitoring mechanisms. The committee was informed that there is a Department of Occupational Safety and Health. It is the lead department in terms of enforcing the law relating to occupational safety and health. The approved structure of this department is 32 staff. But as of now, it has only 26 inspectors. The activities of this department are centralized. It operates from Kampala. Out of 116 districts in this country, there are only 30 district labor officers. It means that the balance of 80 and plus is not covered. In addition, there is no specialized training in occupational safety and health in this country. The Ministry builds capacity of the inspectors by sending them overseas for short courses. Unfortunately, many of them do not stay on their workplaces due to poor remuneration. The committee was informed that there is only one inspector for oil and the gas sector, and that plans are under to open up an office in Home. The committee observed that the shortage of human resources in the ministry, as well as equipment and tools for assessment, has led to the following shortcomings.
Chair.
There is neither regular assessment of workplaces nor follow-up.
Chair, are you going to read the whole text? Can you give us a summary of the
I only need 4 minutes to conclude. I need only 4 minutes to conclude. I'm not reading everything. I'm pointing out the key points. 4 minutes to conclude. Okay, I need 4 minutes to conclude. It's for comment. Okay. The committee recommends that the policy on occupational safety and health should be developed. The law on employment was enacted about 6 years ago. Up to now, there is no policy. The lack of policy means that implementation is very problematic. The Ministry of Public Service, together with the Ministry of Labour, should ensure that all districts are staffed with district labour officers. The committee recommends that all workplaces should have health and safety committees to oversee implementation and detect the violation of occupational safety and health act. All institutions should have fully fledged fire management systems, including sensors and fire assembly points. Mr. Speaker, and all members, the committee was required to provide input regarding compensation. The committee was informed that the workman's compensation arrears amounts to 3.5 billion shillings as of now. Compensation is a long process and spans for more than 10 years. Due to the lengthy procedures, some workers give up and die before they are compensated. In some cases, the process is abused by the employers, who take advantage of the ignorance of employees. When a worker gets an accident, the person is just treated and no compensation is given. Committee recommends that funds should be provided so as the victims are compensated. Also, the committee recommends that the criteria for compensation should be clearly defined so that the victims know what they are due for payment. Mr. Speaker, conclusion now. It is the committee's opinion that the Ministry of Gender has downplayed the need for enforcement and compliance with occupational safety and health. The issue of occupational safety and health is multi-sectoral and requires involvement of all stakeholders. Some employers are maximizing profits at the expense of the safety and health of the employees. In places where occupational safety standards are adhered to, it is driven more by the company culture and not the efforts of the ministry. The committee appeals to the ministry to forever prioritize issues contained in this report and specifically implement the recommendations. The committee appeals to this August House to adopt this report and send a clear message of support and solidarity with workers in this country and with the labor movement in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay this report on table together with the minister's statement already referred to, the list of the workers' places which were registered for the period 2013-2016, the list of workplaces which were inspected from 2012-2016, Department of Occupational Safety Manefe Onogram, Occupational Safety and Health Checklist, the list of approved areas for compensation, and the minutes of the proceedings of the Committee on Occupational Safety and Health. Mr. Speaker, sir, all members, I beg to move that the House adopts this report. Thank you.
Let the records capture those. And honorable members, the question that I now propose for your debate is a motion for adoption of the report of the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development on Occupational Safety and Health. That is the motion for your debate, and debate starts now. Honorable members, there is another report from the same committee. If it were possible, we could also receive that report on nodding syndrome. Can we receive that report as well? Then we see how to proceed. Honorable, call the matter. Clerk.
Item number 6, motion for presentation, consideration, and adoption of the report of the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development on the nodding disease syndrome.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I would like to present a report of the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development on the nodding syndrome. Right Honorable Speaker, in accordance with our rules 177B and E and 147C and D of the Rules of Procedure, the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development conducted a field visit to northern Uganda to find out the impact of the disease syndrome on the community and how it is being managed. Right Honorable Speaker, The objective of this field visit was to find out the effect of nodding syndrome, to establish how the syndrome is being managed. Right Honorable Speaker, our methodology is that as a committee, we conducted meetings with caretakers, administrators of the children affected with the syndrome in Tumango Rehabilitation Center in Kitgum District and in Odek Rehabilitation Center in Gulu.
Procedure?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I know syndrome are diseases, and this nodding disease is the one we're talking about. And we have a committee in charge of health, and that is the one which deals with diseases, drugs, and whatever. The procedures I'm raising, how did the gender come in to deal with diseases? Yet we have children, youth, but we have a whole committee of parliament which handles health issues. Is there a problem? Mr. Speaker, I want to be heard. Is it procedure right that a committee of gender, culture, and whatever deals with the health issues, yet they have other work which could be dealing with?
Well, I would have preferred that we listen to what they presented, because there are different aspects of health. There could be social issues that are related to health that may not necessarily be health issues. Cross-cutting, affecting youth and young people in those areas. Probably that is why they have had to take it over. Instead of specific health issues, there could be other social issues associated to it. So let's listen.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as a committee, we were able to interact with the workers of humanitarian non-governmental organizations, Hope for Human, Caritas, and the officials from Pade District. Right Honorable Speaker, our findings were adversely many. We found that the victims, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, were greatly affected and often manifested with other diseases as seen together with nodding syndrome. For example, we had other children suffering from nodding syndrome as well as epilepsy and mental complications. Right Honorable Speaker, we had also, we were able to make observations as a committee, and Right Honorable Speaker, I would refer honorable members to the full report which is on their iPads, because I'm just summarizing. I will not go to read all the details. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee was able to find out that as much as these children are suffering, there were no special schools for them to cater for their disability. The victims, in our observation, as a result of this syndrome, many of them, they are retarded. You could, for example, see a child who is 22 years but was just looking like he's 9 years old. We found out, Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, that these children had a high appetite as a result of the drugs which were administered to them, and they were not coordinated, they could not be advised, they were emotional, and it was quite difficult for them to be managed. And Right Honorable Speaker, we also observed that the children in this community are indeed stigmatized and traumatized as a result of so many untold stories where the community are not understanding the causes and how this disease is being transmitted. Right Honorable Speaker, we also observed that these children were scattered in many villages, and the villages were quite far away from the health centers, and then meant that reaching the health centers was quite a challenge. Right Honorable Speaker, we also observed that actually the whole community were really not in the know of what is the causes of this disease. And there was so many fear among them. They were ignorant. And as such, others were thinking, could it be a natural causes? Could it be something else which has been as a result of the war? There were all this mixed feeling amongst the community. As a result, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, many parents had actually lost hope of cure. And you would find that these children, the way they were handled, many of them were ignored, many of them were locked up in rooms, sometimes together with animals. Many were tied on the tree because the parents could not keep watch over them all the time. If they left them alone, many would wander, get burnt, go and fall in water, or even get lost. So in such a situation, as a committee, we observed that the rights of these children were greatly affected. And as such, even their movement was controlled under very unpleasant condition. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee observation was as follows: that little effort has been put into the research about the cause of nodding syndrome for the last 18 years since when it was discovered. 2, that there is widespread misconception about the cause of nodding syndrome and how it is spread among the community. While some think that it is a natural cause, others are of the view that it is the effect of the war, and this has affected the way the community treats the victims and how families care for them and the perception towards government. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee recommendation 1 is that the Center for Disease Control, CDC, should carry out a comprehensive research about nodding syndrome as soon as possible, with a special focus on the causes, management, and treatment. The findings should quickly be disseminated properly so that the community is enlightened. Probably on this also, Right Honorable Speaker, CDC, Center for Disease Control, had preliminary done some research which probably the government received, and would be good if the House could also receive it.
Honorable Member, which CDC are you referring to?
Center for Disease Control in the USA.
Are we going as Parliament to direct center in the US to do something?
Mr. Speaker, this was the recommendation from the committee.
That's what I'm saying. Can you recommend that first read the first recommendation?
No, we're asking the government, whom we are dealing with here, if they received that information.
No, the first recommendation, Honorable, the first recommendation.
Thank you. Right Honorable Speaker, 2, the committee recommends that there should be mass sensitization about the disease in the community by the district health officials, the village health teams, and this will reduce the stigma and enable the affected families manage the syndrome better. Right Honorable Speaker, the toll of this syndrome on the families is outlined in the report of the committee, and I will kindly refer the members to read it on their iPad. And allow me, Right Honorable Speaker, that I go on the observation by the committee. Looking after children, it was observed, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, that looking after the children affected by the nodding syndrome is a full-time job, making parents unable to fulfill other duties and responsibilities. Right Honorable Speaker, that the committee recommends thereafter that the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, should provide ox plows and seeds to the families affected by the disease after a thorough verification to help them cultivate land with ease so as to get time to look after the victim. Right Honorable Speaker, the management of the nodding syndrome. The committee was informed in Pade district that there is a task force which was formed to provide additional support of managing the syndrome. The task force meets regularly and is comprising of the Residence District Commissioner, District Internal Security Officer, District Police Commander, and Probation Officer, and that they have 2 vans at the district to help transport these children to the centers. In Kitgum Hospital, Right Honorable Speaker, it was also found that there was a ward which was put to receive the nodding children. And in Guru as well, Right Honorable Speaker, that there is a moving team, mobile team, which goes to Awere Center and Odek in Omoro to provide health care for the sick children. However, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee found out that the drug supplies are limited, yet the victims have to take medication daily. Due to shortage of drugs and food, Right Honorable Speaker, the victims usually get convulsions, and the drug works effectively if the victims are well fed. At Tumangu Medical Center, Honorable Speaker, the medical personnel have fled the health center because of insecurity. Music and dance and drama, Right Honorable Speaker, is a form of therapy which, when combined with medication and good feeding, helps the victim recover faster. At Odek Rehabilitation Center, Right Honorable Speaker, music, dance, and drama is one of the rehabilitation therapy which has worked very well. The committee observed, Right Honorable Speaker, that the treatment of nodding syndrome requires a complete health care package which includes medical and nutritional therapy, physiotherapy, full-time attendance, and properly functioning health care system, of which are all in short supply in northern Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, I will quickly go to the roles of the development partners. Right Honorable Speaker, given the inadequacy of government involvement in the management of the nodding syndrome, development partners like Hope for Humans, Caritas, have championed the fighting against the syndrome. Outstandingly, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, there's Dr. Susan, who is a neurosurgeon doctor from the US, heading the Hope for Humans NGO, has come a long way and constructed a rehabilitation center in Tumangu worth 200 million in 2015. Right Honorable Speaker, the unfortunate part of it is that the rehabilitation center, despite the effort of this single NGO doctor from USA, it has remained not used because the medical equipment and the staff are not in place. The rehabilitation center has an admission ward, staff quarters, and a class block. There's one field nurse who conducts outreach monitoring for about 190 children, which is very inadequate. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, occasionally the center receives donations like motorbikes, wheelchairs, and the Church of the Latter-day Saints donated 3,445 tins of supplements to Tumango. And recently, Right Honorable Speaker, the National Social Security Fund equally donated beds worth 70 million to Tumango Rehabilitation Center. Right Honorable Speaker, another rehabilitation center which is functioning is in Odek, in Omoro constituency district. And it is fully functioning center because the single doctor has been able to pay for 19 staff and 2 full-time nurses who sleep among the children. And Dr. Susan has provided medication for these children as well as food supplements. She's even able to provide drugs to over 500 affected children in the surrounding of the rehabilitation center. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee observed that the 2 rehabilitation centers at Tumangu and Odek are privately owned, which poses a risk for the beneficiaries if the donors decide to pull out. The centers are all operating below capacity, yet many victims of the syndrome have not yet received medication. The committee, Right Honorable Speaker, recommends that government should take over operation and management of the rehabilitation centers for victims of nodding syndrome. 2, that government, through the Ministry of Health, should construct another rehabilitation center in Pade, since it has the highest number of victims. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, as we have been relying on the goodwill of our development partners, right now what is at stake, Honorable Speaker, is that Dr. Susan, who has been a key development partner, has written and told the victim and the government officials in the district that they will not be able to proceed after the end of July. They had wanted actually to close or to withdraw by end of May. But in her letter, if you had allowed me, Mr. Speaker, I would have read it to the House, how painful she lamented for our children, that she had wanted to withdraw by May, but when she heard His Excellency the President was going to Tumango Center, she had to hold on, hopefully that something will come up to back her up, to keep her running the center. As we talk now, nothing has come up, and she has reinstated that she has to close by end of May. Right Honorable Speaker, it is on email, it's a soft copy. If I could be allowed to read it, probably to the members.
It's not part of your report.
All right. Right Honorable Speaker, it's just the pain of a good partner from abroad feeling for our children, and we are here lamenting and appealing to government to let these centers operate. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, what is now really at stake after this good donor withdraws? The children who are in Odek Center were able to be rehabilitated. Some were sent back to their families. But now if the Dr. Susan and her team withdraws, we have to close Tumango Center, where the locals have given free land. There's already a hospital, a health center too, which we had recommended as a committee to be uplifted to health center for full-time attention to these children. They have even put in place a school and dormitory to rehabilitate these children with special need education. What will happen if it goes? Our plea, Right Honorable Speaker, that government quickly takes over these centers. What is at stake? We need, as a committee, we recommended that there should be a budget, immediate intervention of a budget to these 2 existing health centers to be continued, which will enable them not close. They had actually, Right Honorable Speaker and members, written and asked His Excellency the President that for them they have land, and the issue of these children deals with eating and nutrition. If they are given, for instance, 1 tractor for Tumangu, 1 tractor for Odek Health Center, Noding Rehabilitation Center, they will be able to cultivate their own food, which will go a long way to help on the burden by the government to intervene. And we hope, Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, that it will find a heart in this House to have these centers proceeding with this intervention. In conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker, as a committee, although nodding disease syndrome is treatable, a lot needs to be done in order to enable the victims recover. The primary responsibility rests with the government, not development partners who have taken a lead in the management of the syndrome. Due to nodding disease syndrome, the socio-economic development of northern region is affected. I beg to submit. Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, you'll recall that on this particular issue of the nodding syndrome that has affected these children, this House has had lots of discussion about this subject. And I was hoping that the committee would have, in a clear way, presented for us what the status quo is and what needs to be done now, so that the issue is more comprehensively dealt with. They have made recommendations, and some of the recommendations are overlapping. Same with the first report that was presented by the Honorable Alex Lazy, Chair. I'm directing the clerk to extract the recommendations on both reports, so that when we come to debate, we debate on the premises of the recommendations made, and we see how we can please extract the recommendations and circulate to the members. And then when we come to debate, we see how to proceed with the debate. Now, I think we should receive one last report also, and then we see how to handle these 3 issues. Clerk?
Item number 7, motion for consideration and adoption of the report of the Sectoral Committee on Education and Sports on complaints about denial of registration of graduate nurses by the Uganda Nurses and Midwife Council.
Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the honorable colleagues. I laid this report on the floor of the House some time back, but it's already on our iPads. Mr. Speaker, this is a report of the Committee of Education and Sports on the complaint about the denial of registration of graduate nurses by the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Council. Introduction, Mr. Speaker, sorry. This report is a result of a committee inquiry into a matter of registration of graduate nurses from 4 universities. The nurses in question comprise those who successfully graduated from the universities but were denied registration because they lacked the competence and the requisite minimum qualifications at entry for those courses to the affected universities according to the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Council. Mr. Speaker, I will skip the background and move to the universities in question here. Indicated university, the International Health Sciences University of Kampala, Bishop Stuart University Mbarara, Uganda Christian University Mukono, and Kampala International University. And the terms of reference of the committee was to find out whether the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Council were right to deny the students registration, and two, to generate consensus among stakeholders on how to address the plight of the affected students. And three, recommend measures needed to avert the problem from arising again in the future. And in undertaking this assignment, Mr. Speaker, the committee held meetings with the National Council for Higher Education, the Uganda Nurses and the Midwives Council, all universities offering diplomas and bachelor's degrees of science in nursing. We also worked with the Ugandan Nurses and the Midwives Council and National Council for Higher Education to put in place a joint committee made of officials from the two councils to review the matter on a case-by-case basis to ensure that no student is victimized unfairly and generate possible remedies to the affected students. The report from the verification committee therefore then formed the basis for further discussions that generated consensus on possible short and long-term measures to avoid this challenge from arising again. The findings and observations and recommendations of the committee. The committee findings are organized on the basis of the terms of reference that the committee had. The basis, first one, the basis for the Uganda Nurses and Midwives Council decision. The Uganda Nurses and Midwives Council submitted to the committee that for a student to be admitted for a nursing course, it was a requirement that they possessed 2 principal passes in both biology and chemistry. However, the affected universities were admitting students with 2 principal passes in any 2 science subjects. The council further reported that the absence of these 2 core subjects meant that students were not mentally prepared for the nursing profession. And then 2, while the students were qualified by their respective universities and sought to be registered by the council wasn't satisfied with the quality of their qualification. The council indicated that it was its responsibility to defend and uphold the professional codes and minimum standards required of the nursing profession. The refusal to register the nurses was therefore in line with the mandate of the council and intended to protect the integrity and professional standards required of the profession. The National Council for Higher Education agreed with the Nurses Council and indicated that the affected universities needed to have consulted the Nurses and the Midwives Council in developing the course content, delivery methods, and assessment. Indicated that the National Council provides a basic guideline on the minimum requirement for entry to university and accredits courses in consultation with professional bodies, but that it was the responsibility of the universities to work with the responsible professional bodies to establish best practices and standards for different professions such as law and medical sciences. Then the second one is submission from the universities. During the meeting with the universities offering nursing, the committee obtained 3 categories. Mr. Speaker, the first category is that one which was complying with the requirements of the Nurses and Midwives Council, and these were not affected. Then the second category were universities whose representatives admitted that they had recruited students believing that 2 principal passes in any science subjects at A level was a minimum requirement for admission to the Bachelor's of Nursing course. This category of universities submitted that this was based on the general minimum requirement provided by the National Council for Higher Education, to the effect that a student enrolling for university should have a minimum of 2 principal passes in either science subjects for the science-based courses, or arts subjects for the arts-based courses. This category included Uganda Christian University, Mukono, International Health Sciences University, Kampala, and Bishop Stuart University. Mr. Speaker, there was also a third category. These were from universities whose representatives admitted that they were aware that the science students, for a science student to get admitted to a medical course, they required 2 principal passes in both biology and chemistry. They indicated that most of their students were admitted on the basis of this criterion. However, they also recruited some students who had 1 principal pass in either biology or chemistry, plus another principal pass in any other science subject, but on condition that they underwent a bridging course offered by their university and passed it before embarking on a nursing course. And this category included Kampala International University. Now, the consensus by all stakeholders. From this consensus, the committee observed that on the basis of submission by the universities to the joint meeting of the National Council for Higher Education, Uganda Nurses and Medical and Midwives Council, the committee, and the various universities offering the bachelor's degree in nursing, that was held on 23rd February 2017, it emerged that the representatives of the universities admitted that they had made mistakes in admitting students without the requisite entry requirements, and promised to put in place measures to ensure that the practice would not occur again. And then the other is that all the affected universities were private universities, raising concern as to the motivation for their activities. The committee believes that these universities tended to be motivated more on recruiting more students and making more money as opposed to maintaining professional standards. As per the submission of the National Council for Higher Education, a university providing a bridging course which is not approved by the council acted outside the law. Besides, the university would to some extent have assumed the responsibility of other examination agencies like Uganda National Examinations Board that is charged with assessing the suitability of a student to enter university after advanced level. The affected students were therefore victims of negligent action by the universities in question. It was therefore agreed that by all the stakeholders that A, remedial measures, including additional practicum training, be provided to the affected students. B, the cost of additional practicum or training should be met by the affected universities. And C, this would be a one-off intervention, and universities would not recruit any more students outside the established minimum requirements. Any student who was recruited in the current academic year would be allocated an alternative related course for which they qualify. Then again, observation as a recommendation. On the basis of the above, the committee recommends that the recommendations of the Joint Review Committee of the Uganda Nurses and the Midwives Council and the National Council for Higher Education, that additional practicum and training is organized by the Uganda Nurses and the Midwives Council for students who lacked the minimum entry requirement to address the skills gaps identified by the Uganda Nurses and the Midwives Council. The cost of additional practicum or training is borne by the affected universities. And B, that for students who were assessed to have met the minimum criterion for registration and practice under supervision by be considered for registration as per the recommendations of the Joint Verification Committee report. The committee also observed that the National Council for Higher Education did not exercise adequate oversight on these universities. Besides, the council has an option of having universities provide clearance from professional bodies as a prerequisite for accreditation of courses. The Council attributed this lack of supervision to lack of adequate funding from the ministry. And the committee also recommends that the Ministry of Education and Sports should consider providing supervision grants to the National Council for Higher Education and other professional bodies for them to be able to exercise effective oversight on universities and ensure that they comply with established legal and regulatory framework governing their activities. Further, politicians should avoid political interference in the work of professional bodies if they are to protect standards in the profession to which they exercise their authority. The committee further observes that in many parts of the developed world, the nursing profession does not require chemistry and biology at pre-entry. Rather, prospective candidates are subjected to an aptitude test and enrolled for training based on their performance in the set aptitude. It is during the training that a candidate will either succeed or fail based on a number of factors ranging from academic performance to professional conduct, character, and commitment to the requirements of the job. The committee also recommends that a regulatory framework governing the nursing practice in Uganda should be reviewed with the intent of attracting more practitioners and filling the existing gaps that grossly affect our healthcare system. And in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the committee finds that the decision of the Ugandan Nurses and Midwives Council was made in good faith, intended not only to promote proper training of nurses in Uganda, but uphold the professional and ethical standards in the nursing profession too. And the committee further commends the Nurses Council and the National Council for Higher Education for generating the proposed intervention aimed at filling the skills gap created by the negligence of the affected universities, and further agree that the cost of the training be met by the university. The universities should take up measures to address the issues that led to this crisis. Any university that continues with this practice, despite the commitment they made to the National Council for Education, the Nursing Council, and the committee, should face punitive action, including revoking its license. I beg to submit, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, was this a petition or it was just originated by the committee?
This petition came from the students who had been denied registration. There were about 129 students who finished their courses in this.
You know, why I'm asking is,
yes,
because now when we are just adopting the report of the committee, we lose track of the origin. So what should have been here is the report on the petition submitted by these particular people, because now we will finish this, but the record will still show that the petition is still pending.
No,
so it should be captured that this is a result of a petition.
Yes.
That we're taking a decision on the petition, not the report of the committee, because it's not
On
something originated by the committee. It is on a petition. So
Yes.
the committee is reporting on a petition.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Speaker.
think our record should reflect this clearly.
Yeah,
Clerk.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. That is it.
Thank you. Honorable members, we'll propose this question once this matter is restructured. I'll propose the question on item 5, motion for adoption of the report of the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development on the nodding syndrome. I propose the question for the debate, but we'll defer this debate when, as I directed, let's extract the recommendation that we can have a proper debate. I'll propose the question on item 7 once it is restructured to capture that this was a matter of a petition, and now we're dealing with a petition. Honorable members, we'll pause for today here. Yesterday we went for very long. This House stands adjourned to tomorrow, 2 o'clock.